Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's funny. Darren, it's the Blue Oyster Cult Part 2. I'm sitting 24. Okay. We were just talking about this backstage, actually. It's kind of funny you brought that up. But welcome everybody. Another Friday. Welcome to Heavy Metallurgy. Alan, good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I am busy, but I'm good.
Good.
Super duper busy week trying to get a lot of stuff done all day. But everything I think is it's going to stop here for a bit. We're going to have some fun this Friday evening. Hope everyone out there is doing well in the chat. Good to see folks filing in for the show.
Absolutely. And I guess before we get started, I don't want to keep our guests waiting too long, but typical stuff. We're streaming live on Twitch as well. Again, I don't quite get Twitch, old guy stuff, but we're on there in case you prefer Twitch. You can go on there and subscribe as well. Where I have an Instagram page for Heavy Metallurgy, and super chats are available if anybody cares to help support the channel. But the main thing is a good 20 to 30% of you watching are still not subscribed. Go ahead and subscribe. It helps out the channel quite a bit. Other than that, t-shirts still available. I think Alan has them in the link, and new ones are coming. I've just been too busy to get them going, but those will be launching very soon. Anything I forget?
I think we have covered all of the basics. It's busy time for Marty with Bindrune. Lots of cool stuff happening there. A lot of good albums coming out right now. We finally have gotten to that point in the year where the new releases are starting to kind of pour forth. So keep your eye out for the album reviews. Folks are trying to cover some of the cool stuff coming out that you'll want to hear about.
And actually, we're going to be talking about one of those killer new albums right now. Album's getting a lot of buzz, and these two gentlemen, one of which I've known for many years, friend of mine. Carl, I've known here and there. We've talked briefly at shows and whatnot, but let's bring them on. We got Carl Skildum from Inexorum and Majesties, and Tanner Anderson from Obsequiae and Majesties. Gentlemen, welcome. Hello. It's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Hey guys, glad to have you on. Glad we could find a night where everybody was available at once.
And I know you've been super busy with doing a lot of press and stuff, so it's cool for taking the time to work us in, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, we're fans, so I mean, it's fun to actually be on instead of just on my couch watching.
Oh yeah, since Celestial. Is Celestial still a thing, Tanner? Have you thought about that in a while, or not really?
I mean, Metal Archive says active, so.
Oh well, it must be then.
Yeah,
it must be then. Yep.
Every time I think I'm done, I check the status. So.
That's they got their finger on the pulse. They know what's right?
Yeah, that's right.
But well, we're here for a very excellent album. You guys, we were talking a bit about this in the background, but I gotta say, I'm a guy that is not a big hype person, and I typically, people go on and on about how great something is. I mean, I knew these guys, so I was going to get this no matter what, and I knew it was going to be good, but the hype train is right on this one. They nailed it. This Vast Reaches Unclaimed, absolutely killer record, their debut album for Majesties. Congratulations, guys. I mean, seriously, it's one of those things we were talking earlier that a new band, it's tough for a new band to get traction like this, and you guys killed it on this one. Absolutely.
Isn't that kind of the scary thing about hype? Because how many amazing people out there have projects or songs where, they have killer melodic death metal, and they're just sitting there being like, what the fuck is this Majesties bullshit?
Yeah.
Where did these guys come from?
There's only so much you can do for your own hype before everyone else just starts commenting on stuff, and you roll your eyes and then you blush and stuff like that. But just want whoever might possibly see this that knows you're better than us. I promise we do too, and we're sorry.
Well, I gotta say it, and it's even rarer for someone to. The main focus is kind of a nostalgia trip. Let's be honest. I mean, this album is kind of a snapshot in time, or appreciation for a snapshot in time. And the thing that's cool about this album, after listening to it a few times, you guys took a template that was, very popular for a short period of time in the 90s, and you kind of made it new again. I mean, whether that was the intention or not, that's kind of what happened. And I think that is why people are so tuning in on this record. Would you agree with that? I mean, it's kind of hard to pat your own self on the back here, but I'm just saying you took a nostalgia trip and you made it kind of exciting and whatnot.
I think we made a record that we wanted to hear, and that was really the whole reason behind it. When we did this, we just thought it was going to be something that Tanner and I did for fun, and no one would ever hear it except for a couple of our buddies. I mean, that's that's as far as I thought we'd ever get with it. And the idea was that just we love these early records of these, I guess you could say it's Gothenburg, and you have to pin it down to one location, but we loved all those records and felt like we hadn't heard anything recently that had that same kind of energy and sort of the wild linear songwriting that a lot of those earlier bands had. And that just was like, we want to make something that kind of took our own interpretation of that, just so we could hear something new in that style that we fell in love with so long ago. So that was the whole concept, and just sort of snowballed from there.
Yeah, that's interesting, Carl, because if I understand correctly, this is something y'all have been working on for several years. And was there, I thought that, hey, this is a good time to release it because there is kind of a vacuum among, newer melodic death metal releases, or was this just finally things were finished and so it was time to try to roll it out?
Yeah, it's more, we finished the 10 songs were really finished being composed in 2017. And then we cycled through, a number of people kind of came in and out of the project. And for us, it's, when I think Tanner would say the same thing, is that when we're in bands with people, they're also people we care about as friends. And we wanted to give them all time to absorb the material and, come up with their own twist on it. And in all those cases, that takes time. And
oh yeah,
that sort of stretched things out. And I guess the only thing I can say about it is life happens. And for all the people who sort of cycled in and out of the project, it's just matters of timing or availability and, juggling other projects, because everybody's got 5 bands now. So, so that was really a thing that we had to, just be patient with. And that was fine because we all had other things, other projects going on at the same time. But, we finally decided that for us to finish this, because it's always been sitting there in the back of our heads, is that we love these songs and wanted to kind of hear them finished instead of just as half complete demos on a hard drive. So we decided, it was about, I guess, 2019 that the three of us, Tanner and I and Matt, decided that we just finish it, the three of us, because at that point that was the lineup that was left. So finished the guitars right before the pandemic, and then that hit and slowed things down a little bit too. And but we finally got it done last summer, and then it's just the manufacturing and lead time process of putting out a record with a label.
Yeah, I was in Minnesota for something, and I remember Tanner taking me out to the work truck and throwing some of this on. I'm assuming that's what this was. And I'm just sitting there going, wow. And I just heard little snippets here and there as we had a cigarette. And it's really good to hear it after all this time. And you finding the right musicians too. It's not like you're, throwing just a handful of power chords together. There's a lot of advanced melody happening here. And it's just one of those things you just can't grab anyone. And it's cool. Like Matt is also in Inexorum, which Carl is also in, and Antiverse. So it's good to have people and trust involved in the final product. So I guess the first question is, knowing Tanner, I know this is a genre that's been near and dear to his heart since I've known him. And how did this come together, Tanner? Did this kind of start off, you just kind of wanting to do this and throwing it at some of your friends? You want to join in on this, or because you guys are both products of very busy growing bands. It's one of those deals that like I said, it isn't just power chords. There's a lot going on here. It's not just a little nothing project or there's a lot of substance. So what got you going in this direction? What made you decide this was the path you wanted?
I promised to answer the question, but it's interesting the way you put that, just because like when I'm writing like obsequiae stuff, like the second I start playing something that's more Gothenburgy, I'm like, oh, it's time for bed, like just because
Go to bed, old man. Yes.
it's sort of when you slip into like, it's like your grandmother just starts speaking, in native tongue, and you're like, let's go to bed. Like it's just you grow up with it, and I just kind of feel like this is something that I don't know whether or not it was ever like gestating to eventually like come to what it is now. Like certainly it informed my playing, and like when I was doing Autumnal Winds, like a lot of those songs, a lot of those like ideas just kind of remained in this place that, I just had a lot of cassettes and like 4-track cassettes and like digital archives of like all these things I never was going to see through. And then I met, my guitar husband, Carl Skilden.
You guys complement each other well. It's a wonderful relationship for sure.
Yeah, we found everything in common with all kinds of, really specific, that sort of twilight kind of point of melodic death metal that like when you find someone else that's like that, it's like, holy shit, where have you been my life, And then we start playing and we're doing the live obsequiae stuff. And of course, like that's always there. And he played a riff, and I think it was just kind of like, dude, we should write a melodic death metal record. It's like ruin our careers. So we did.
Well, that's just it. I mean, we were talking also backstage. I remember this time, and writing in a zine during this time. There were the key bands, and there was a lot of bands copying those bands, and it just kind of hit. It was kind of like the brutal, New York style death metal, Cannibal Corpse, Suffocation bands. It hit a saturation point where, I would get Everdawn, Poems Burn in the Past, and just want to throw it in the trash because it sounds like At the Gates or Gates of Ishtar, stuff like that. Although re-spinning some of that stuff the last couple of days, it's a lot better than I remember it, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's the same dudes, Nicholas Sense, or at least Oscar Carlson was in that, because like before Poems was Opera of the Damned, that EP that was not much different. A lot of like those Oscar Carlson projects were pretty melodic death metal. I think he was in the Moaning too.
Oh, that's right. The Moaning.
And he's in Sarcasm,
Yep.
Not that that's Gothenburg, but
Ben is critiquing the status of my White Claw pile. I haven't taken the cans back yet. Give me a break. There's a lot of Fridays and Wednesdays have gone by. And the thing that kind of focusing on the nostalgia trip, and I don't think this was at all. I just kind of noticed this, like the Scandinavian scene is kind of a special case for the fact that, especially in the black metal, well, even in the death metal thing as well, there were so many super groups that formed during, the 90s, early 2000s that actually congealed into a band that ended up being just as essential as the main bands. I mean, it's kind of amazing that, this has kind of happened here as well. Granted, you guys are all working together. I mean, Carl and Matt are both involved in Obsequiae's live lineup. I don't know where I'm going with this question, other than I'm just making an observation. It just does. Not only did the sound feel like it came from then, it seems like the aesthetic, the overall aesthetic of, talented people from other bands getting together and making something just as cool as their main bands. I just think that's kind of a apt observation, I guess. Obviously, it wasn't the intention, but moving on. Sorry. Can the occasional elements? I can hear parts of your other bands and Majesties as well, but you've kept the music its own entity, which is very, very cool. Was it hard to step outside of familiar formulas when writing for this, or did having kind of a mission statement to follow keep you guys on track?
I'd say no, but like, who's the dude in the chat, Frank? Earlier, I can't see it now, where he's like, it's just produced too much like an Obsequiae record, and I'm like, what? Then that's.
I don't think it has as much reverb.
Yeah, might not. It's totally valid though. Like, I think it really depends on listeners. I wasn't trying to like pick on people. I'm just saying, like,
Oh no.
there are reviews that are like, man, that lead tone sounds like the Just Race, and then like the next comment's like, sounds like an Obsequiae record. And to me, like, I hear Inexorum stuff in there too.
I do too.
Sonically, yeah. But I don't know. I guess it's just kind of up to your ears. You certainly like don't have an introduction to, like, if you're gonna hear a new death metal band and it's like, hey, this is X and Y from like these classic bands, like that's how it starts. Like, you're going to focus on those things too, you know. So
yeah, and I think it's nice to hear that people recognize the playing from other records in this, that we put out in different projects. But one funny thing is that this was all written before Inexorum existed at all. I mean, those 10 songs were done before I even started to think about writing the first Inexorum record, and so all of this actually predates that band. So that's kind of a weird thing. The only other element to that is that I guess we went back and we recorded the guitars after those records were done. But so I might have had a little bit more experience recording at home, but this really predates a lot of the stuff that people might know me from, if they know me at all.
Right. Well, I mean, listening to Inexorum today, I mean, I think it's your solo style and the way you play those, the way you construct melody. I can catch it after listening to Inexorum and going back to the Majesties. You can hear it, and same with, people say, "Oh, it sounds like an Obsequiae." Well, no shit. I mean, it's the guy that wrote all that stuff. There's going to be an imprint on that as well, no matter what. I mean, if you were to play a Suffocation style album, there's going to be things that creep up in there that's going to sound, oh, that sounds like a this or that. Just the way it is. It's our style is a product of our bad habits.
Yeah.
And it's true. And
yeah, that's a whole episode by itself. And if you'd have me on for that, I would love that. I love how style becomes a product of just accidents and, yeah.
Repeating your bad habits.
Yeah.
And this is a good thing. Hey, Mark, what's up? I love Juanjo Constanello's artwork. I'm sorry. Did you consider Andreas Marshall for the cover art as well? Also, can you talk about what direction went into Juanjo's amazing cover painting?
Carl, this is all you, but I just think it's so sick that like Mark Riddick's just in the chat right now.
Yeah, that's so great.
Mark rules. He was on a month ago, and it was awesome to have him. He's coming back for sure. Totally
Absolutely.
Awesome dude.
So that the story behind that, we didn't have a real plan as to who was going to do the record for the longest time. And I guess, it goes back to, not necessarily wanting to sound like I'm self-doubting, but I didn't expect that we would have a record that would come out and everybody would be getting a chance to hear the way it did. So when we first started talking to 20 Buck Spin, Dave suggested working with Juanjo, and I was like, yeah, let's do that, because I've been a fan of his work for forever. So that's really, it sort of started and ended there. Andreas Marshall would be amazing, but we just kind of we started off with the suggestion from Dave and just went for it. But as far as the concepts, it's based on the lyrics for one of the songs on the record called Sidereal Spire, and the story in that song is about a magical tower that appears at one very special prophesized time. This is all these really sort of surreal stories that we kind of made these lyrics up about. So it's just all garbage that came out of my brain in the attempt to make little stories. But
I love it. I love it.
But so I talked to him about the concept is that this person who's walking in this field sees this crystal tower that appears, and going up into this tower, ascending these steps that keep going up and up and up, and kind of reflecting on different phases of life and experience until getting up into the stars and realizing there's no way back, and perishing, looking back down through this crystalline tower. And so it sounds really dumb when I say it out loud.
Hey, it worked for Dio. Stargazer from Rainbow has kind of a sort of a similar thing going on there.
But he took the idea and ran with it, and I mean, it was really fun to do that. He and I got to talk a little bit about. I saw some early versions of it, and I said, let's try this or that, and he made it better every single time we talked about it, and it was just a blast to work with him. So that was really one of the most amazing elements of having this record coming to life, was seeing that visualized in such a way. It was really cool.
It's one of those pieces too. Your eye just wanders in it, and it feels like you're in that world. And I mean, perfect companion for this piece of music for sure. And,
folks. I've seen several folks comment that they really like the lyrics. Not that they're not kind of standard death metal fare for any type of death metal, but that they've got like Tyler is saying here, this kind of high fantasy element to them. That there are these cool stories. Temporal Anchor, kind of has a similar story too, with the person getting unstuck in time and jumping around without being able to get back and stuff. So it's cool to check out the lyrics. Y'all did a really good job with them.
Thank you.
Everybody loves good old Satan, but it's time to retire. Satan, you're tired. Go to bed.
I know. Yeah, it's tough with melodic death metal, but I still think it's great to talk about Satan.
Oh, sure. Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Was I interrupting somebody?
I've got a question. If you
go ahead. No, go for it.
Yeah, I was wondering, since this was kind of a project that was a long time in the works. At what point did labels start talking to you, or did you take it to labels? Did $20 Spin just say, when you finish this we'll do it, or did you have to send them demos? How did the label deal come to be?
Well, I think Tanner, didn't you sent Dave a couple early snaps?
Yeah, there were a couple of people that just kind of like over the course of us playing, especially a couple of our drummers would be talking to, and like we wound up with a bunch of people that were like, I want this when it's out, or at least to listen. And I guess it's not very interesting. Or we just ended up with, we sent it to Dave, and like I hadn't heard back, and then like a week later I was like, hey, I was just curious, like if we can send it to other people. And then he was like, I don't think we should see other people. Like I really like I've actually slept with these harmonies like every night.
Sorry.
And the reason I couldn't return your text earlier was because I was loving them.
So kind of once he heard it, he's like, this is mine.
He's like, I know what to do. Nostalgia trip.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. Well, distance has kind of become an issue with you guys, and now that Majesties continues to impress and rise in popularity, is there suddenly pressure to make this all work longer term somehow?
I just think it's sort of natural when you release a debut that, no matter how much you feel about it, like, of course, I'm going to be like, we had the best time writing this stuff. Like, that's the most fun. And like, I know we're always going to want to play together, whatever that may be. But like, I think ever since the records come out and we are now geographically, far away, we have an interest in working together. If anything, just more of a hunger to do it. And we're certainly not out of ideas. Like we've had more this week that have, it's been wild.
Zoom makes it a little bit easier. You guys can sit and jam and not have to worry about it so much. I don't know what the lag time is, but it probably isn't too bad.
I mean, it's even more so like me getting up in the morning and knowing these guys are at work, and then just like writing riffs and like sending them in a text, So I get a lot of satisfaction from that.
Yeah, it's kind of torture for us because I'm working and I get these magical riffs and I'm like, I want to play with that and I want to go get my guitar and I can't.
I want to play too. Yeah. Right.
I think the other thing for it is that this is a way for us to still have structured friend time, and that's important too. I mean, that's that's why we started doing this in the first place, is just we enjoy hanging out, and it's just fun. And that was the focus of it, is not to do anything else beyond having a good time and geeking out over music that we both enjoy, and to have it come to life in this way, that and to have these conversations, and to be able to share it with other people who are excited about it, is icing on the cake. I mean, that's just it's just really more than I ever dreamed would be happening. But so we kind of feel like, well, yeah, this is already eclipsed our wildest dreams. Let's do more.
Right. And I think a lot of people forget too that writing music is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun, and you can tell a band that's successful at it is having fun doing it. And again, congratulations. The album turned out so good.
Thank you.
I do want to mention there's talk, scuttlebutt around that John Kerr has joined the band on drums. How did that come together? I heard rumors how that happened, but I kind of want to hear it from the horse's mouths. My lords, tell us what happened.
This is so crazy that there's stories. I wonder, like, if I miscommunicated something to someone, or just like, because you're not alone. But yeah, no, there's no lore. There's no story. Carl, am I like misremembering things? Like,
I don't think so.
yeah, I think like a text. I was like, hey, can John Kerr be in the band? And they're like, yeah. But people are like, oh, he learned the whole album, and so they let him in. Like, we asked him last year, like this whole like rushing to do this album, not rushing, like we took our time, but like it was a pandemic, so we explored a lot of options. Like programming drums was not a first decision for us. We had drummers, like I was very happy. Like you were saying, like when you find people that are great to play with, that's the problem with really great drummers, is they have a style that is both a great thing and a bad thing. When you're like, hey, like I'm writing this with the idea that Daniel Svensson or like Daniel Erlandson is recording this in 1995. I want to hear like skank beats with like pretty unnecessary rolls on the 3, I want to hear cymbal accents that are just too much, like so yeah, we went from like, we can talk about drums sometime, because I know like people get pretty contentious about that. Frankly, the artwork is digital too. Like, get upset about that, but Mark Riddick thinks it's cool. Also, so I don't know. I mean, really, like, feel how you want to, but please try and remember, like how these things happen in a circumstance of like the pandemic, where your friends are moving. Maybe you've experienced some loss in your life. Maybe a lot of people around you have. You just want to have a record out with your friends, and you didn't anticipate being in the hot seat. This fucking burning up. I gotta go. Like in the throes of hype. So.
Oh, you're getting some of the prog drummers riled up now.
Yeah.
What's up, Hunter?
Yeah.
I do have to say, Ben made a point in his review that some people are, about the superior drummer thing. And I got to, first of all, the Tune Track made one of the most amazing tools ever in the history of songwriting.
You never know that because they're called Tune Track.
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, they're technically not fake drums. They're actually recorded humans recording drums. I know there's drummers in the, Hunter is a drummer.
Upset about it. They want to know, like, these are people that like fucking fake drums on an album. Like, I thought that hooker loved me. I'm gonna keep spending hundreds of dollars in the VIP room.
Yeah.
Like, this is the kind of shit where it's just like obsessing over it. It's like, seriously, go listen to prog. Like, really, there are a bunch of drummers. Go, like, I watch Mark Zonder just play Warlord songs because I want to watch him play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do that. If you're gonna listen to melodic death metal, like, don't expect like, holy shit, so much like dynamic in this, in this playing. We just really committed to the patterns and had a pretty melodic structure with them. I'm sure it'll change with John Kerr. He's a killer drummer, and stylistically, like, he shares that, as we've been saying, the DNA, the Gothenburg DNA.
But the thing of it is, people don't realize that, the Superior drummer, the drum kit from hell, all that stuff, it's actual people recorded those drum parts, the sounds that were captured in a studio. And you have the forethought when writing this music, you're not going to program something so fucking crazy that a human couldn't play it. I mean, you listen to that stuff and it's not outlandish. It's on par with what a human can do. It's not like, super crazy. I mean, my first death metal band was a drum machine, Alesis HR 16B, the gray one. Man, what a pain in the ass. And it sounded like shit. And nowadays, what's out there, and the way that a lot of engineers are recording drums these days, in order for drums to be heard in a speed situation, there's a level of fake. I'm sorry. There's triggers. There's this, there's that. There's different techniques that guys like Scott Burns and Thomas Skogsberg and all these people, come to find out that the Studio Sunlight drum sound is a D drum kit. When I found that out, my mind was like, wow, I thought this guy had like this secret mic that he used or whatever, but no, it's fucking D drums, man. There's still a human playing them, but it's electronic drum kit.
Or like the entire Hellenic black metal scene came out of a suitcase in George's living room, Yeah,
absolutely. Exactly. So people need to get off their horse and realize that technology, I mean, we're in an age of technology, and there are songwriting tools that sound good, man. I'm not a drummer, and I think the
argument isn't about technology. I think it's about integrity. I really think that's what metalheads think they're holding on to, but really we just like to find gripes with things. I'm one of them too. Unless it's me, it really hurts my feelings. So, please stop, because we explored a lot of options. We had some fucking sick drummers. Like someone on Metal Archives is like, I don't get how people like this do this. They could have called someone in. And it's like, yeah, we could have, but we called our friends, and then things happened. I said this on Invisible Orange's podcast this week, but especially when I was getting really into programming and stuff, I was just going from my kit downstairs, coming back up with some of those patterns. And I was like, look, I know I'm not in shape. I don't fucking care enough to become the sickest drummer right now, but
you don't have to.
I could do this at 2/3 speed though. And we had talked about that, going to Adam Tucker's studio and talk about cheating again, integrity. That's what people, I think, get upset about. Really, we just wanted the riffs to sing, and I think percussion is immensely important. Yeah.
And I gotta say, I just wanted to talk about that briefly, because if I've seen any sort of dings on the record, it's because of that, and it's typically from non-musician people that are saying it. They don't know shit about writing a song.
Now I'm upset.
But no, that's a good point, Tanner, and I think you're onto something there. People always want to feel like everything is real and genuine, and that there's nothing there's no extra layer to it whatsoever, and they always get kind of bent out of shape when they realize that, oh no, there is a vocoder used, or somebody sped the tape up so they're playing slightly faster than they really can.
These people need to listen to Coil or something. Just get some basic understanding of how electronics work, how synthesis works, and then think about the problem you have with MIDI blocks and velocities. I don't know.
And the things that you have to do to make it sound like a person too. You
humanize it.
Marty, you don't have, your hi-hat and your snare and your tom and 3 crashes aren't all being hit simultaneously. It's something that that a human would play. And that's where Tanner, being a drummer, it was really helpful to have Tanner doing the programming, because like you were saying, you go upstairs from your kit to the computer and you take what you were just working on and put it into the song.
And even if I accidentally might have put a tom and a crash and a snare, and we can just say we had
who fucking cares? Who fucking cares? Yeah.
We had all of Test Department, Time Travel, and Neubauten, and King Crimson. We had 3 drummers. That's what happened.
And the thing of it is, I mean, people listen to industrial music. You don't hear them bitching about fake drums, or going to see an industrial show and there is no drummer.
I mean, there is no drummer. There are
sometimes, but I've seen some industrial bands that don't have a drummer, and it's fine. It's fine. You're in that environment. I mean, it's all about the music, and it's an awesome tool. It's an awesome tool that sounds amazing. And
hell yeah, Hunter. Autechre is amazing.
I mean, like Marty, I think we've all heard stuff like you were saying, where it's a drum beat that's not inspiring, and it sounds like just somebody pressed a button on a Casio keyboard. And that was I had that same sort of, I don't want to, program drums, yuck, because I had heard so many bad examples of it. But over the last, 5-6 years and hearing some of the capabilities that there are today, my opinion has changed. So I do sympathize with that sort of reaction. I feel this sometimes the same way about, like a synthesized intro, like synthetic orchestras or orchestral intros on records. For me, I always feel like, boy, I've heard this many times and it still isn't quite moving me, and it's not giving me any sort of emotional response other than, when's the metal going to start? So I feel like I think everybody has their things that they are annoyed by in production, and I'm never going to give anyone a hard time about that. And for us, when we listened to this, there was a point where we heard the songs and we're like, yeah, these are done. These are good. They make me feel great listening back to them. And I think that was the point where we said, this is the record that we want to make, is the one that we're putting out.
Right.
So, if someone else out there is thinking the same thing and you feel like drum machines are getting in your way, don't let that be it. Like, if you have sick riffs, you should let it out there. Like, I don't know, if there's like a sandwich I've never had and I am like a Poupon guy all the way, but they only have French's, I'll still want to fucking try it. Like, that's what's going to get in your way, like, take the pickle off the sandwich. You can eat it. You're not going to get poisoned. These fucking metalheads are such babies.
Yeah, they can be. And the fact that, they're, and if they're perseverating on hey, Andre, thanks a lot for that. Appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Andre.
If they're perseverating on the fact that it may or may not be real drums and they're not listening to the riffs, I mean, why are you even listening to this record? Let's be honest. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yep. But Tanner, that's a good point too about, if you have the riffs, you've got a really important piece of it. And I know for some folks that's been a little bit of an issue with death metal in recent years, that there's been, a ton of new bands coming out, and a lot of them are very interesting. They're great at capturing the atmosphere of old school death metal, but where a lot of them come up a little bit short is the riff department. They don't have the same level of riffs that a lot of the older, more veteran bands had and are used to. So yeah, don't I think that's something too that obviously makes y'all's album stand out. The riffs are amazing and they're all over the place, and it's something that I've gotten the sense that people were really kind of missing in a good chunk of modern death metal.
Well, thanks, Ellen.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And I came from a world of, like I said, Elisa's HR16B. We got sick of that sound, so we went and dumped the MIDI files from the drum machine into an Ensoniq sampling keyboard, where we took a Bob Clearmountain drum CD samples and programmed our second. I mean, back then, having to push buttons, and if you missed the beat, you couldn't go backwards. You had to go all the way around. It was such a pain in the ass. The fact now, I mean, I use the drum stuff. It's great. It's great. And if you're not a drummer and you're bitching about drums, or you just get something else to focus on, it's stupid. Anyway, we went on a lot about this.
Well, there's one controversial thing we need to stand up for drummers here, because so many drummers are great and they have to put up with assholes like us that are like, hey, I programmed this. You play it exactly how it is. Yeah. Because there are people on the internet that'll get mad if you don't.
Play this Hammer Blast for 2 minutes straight.
Yeah.
230 BPM.
My favorite thing is when you're writing with a drummer is, yeah, that's pretty cool, bro, but it's not what I hear in my head. But, the drummers, and I got to say, working with a great drummer, I don't ever want to go back. I mean, it's like one of those things that having to stop, you write some awesome riffs, you just want to keep moving with the song, having to stop and start farting around with drums. And then I forget how to use the program because I don't use it enough. It's just a flipping fucking tables, man. I'm like, this is bullshit. Why do I do this? This is dumb. No one's going to listen to this crap anyway. But, you've got a system. It works great. It sounds great. Don't sweat it. You know, the birds chirping, just let them chirp. It's all good.
All right.
But it's been really fun to now have John to bounce ideas off of too. And
he's great. He's a great drummer.
That is already given us a different approach even to how we're thinking about this next batch of songs. So it really is, feels good.
Make him pay for his lack of vision. This will be the blast. Hey, Todd, thanks a bunch, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thanks, Todd.
Appreciate it, Todd.
Oops, sorry. There was a question there. Drums on the album don't diminish or take anything away from the music on the album. People need to get over themselves. Absolutely. 100%.
I mean, it's fun when people talk shit. Honestly, it's fun to be put in a position to, talk about this stuff because there are right and wrong or like preferences, I guess, for every person with this. And it's interesting to hear about it, but I really think like a lot of it is less about whatever, let's just do a drum machine episode.
Oops, sorry.
Oops.
The drum machine's drunk. Go home.
That's right. Yep.
Although fucking Bob Vigna, you're talking about like what you did, like programming all that stuff. You think about early immolation, that dude wrote drums. Like, yeah, yep. That's all.
Well, what was it about melodic Swedish death metal that made such an impression on you guys?
I think for me, it was that it took elements of everything that I liked from earlier strains of heavy metal and kind of put it into one package. It had, I kind of discovered heavy metal before there were that many offshoots. I'm an elderly gentleman, so I was around pretty early, and the new wave of British heavy metal was kind of what I started to really fall in love with, along with thrash. And I started to hear both of those elements coming into this, stuff that was coming out of Gothenburg. The vocals were, I guess, I don't know. I felt like they, a lot of those bands had higher pitched vocals, which I associated more with black metal, which at that time I hadn't really formed as much of a bond with. So this also felt like a foothold into that sound, just that with this, the more the raspy vocals and the higher pitched stuff instead of the gutturals so much. And just the intensity of the music was really, really got me. So when I heard it for the first time, which I think was that Wrong Again Records comp, was the first time I really got a sense for what was happening, and that was just like a light switch was on. It was like, this is what I've been dying to hear.
It's funny you mentioned black metal too, because I'm going through this. I pulled some records tonight that I'm looking at. I'm like, people call this record a black metal record, and it's not, man. It just isn't. And there's some that may walk the line, and some bands here that, here's one. I'm going to show it, Out of Turn. I don't know if a lot of people have heard this record, but I listen to this. I hear some bits and pieces of Majesties on here. I just do. And people would call this black metal. Are you spitting out your tongue because you hate this record? Because I like this. I like this record.
Although I had lots of friends that had this. I used to know a dude who would we'd go into a parking lot and he'd put on a different shirt when he went into the restaurant. One of them was Sign of the Apocalypse Dragon. I always just think of Midwinter and that dude.
So why is this a bad record? So I'm serious. I'm curious because I've always thought this was okay. It sounds, there's a lot of good melodies.
I just think when you're talking about melodic death metal and you pull out Midwinter,
this is very, people think this is black metal, and I hear it, I listen to it. It's I'm kind of saying that it straddles the line where this could sit in the same category as Winterland. I listened to that Winterland album.
Is that Invasion Records band?
Yeah, this is the Invasion Death Records
and
promo.
When did it come out? It's 97?
97, I believe.
97. Yeah. Okay.
There's
And
too much.
Winterland, that's 96. Welcome, my last chapter. So like the black metal stuff, you throw Sacramentum, kind of stuff like that.
I
in
got
there.
a Sacramentum record I pulled. Dissection. That to me is melodic death metal. I'm sorry. It just
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I still think it's too easy to like let that stuff just kind of be its own thing without thinking about like what makes melodic death metal, like 93 to 96. Are there any more obscure bands that influence and form Majesties? I would love to tell you there are, and there are weird ones, like a Finnish band called Shadows of Sunset for me. They have a demo and an EP, Reflections from Afar. It was on the same label, I think, that put out the Ceremonium Fadeless records. No Longer Silent by Ceremonium. I don't know what else they did, but yeah, that's a killer one. I mean, I don't know.
Belief. I mean, that's not a. That was something that I did not have access to.
What about this one?
Yeah, that exactly. I think one thing that's been great about talking about this record is getting a chance to rave.
Show 'em
about
again,
Fall
Tanner.
Belief. Yep.
I know everyone's got this like repress of Storm of the Autumn Fall, but this is the original.
Right on. And I mean, I remember when
Sorry.
I heard Obsequiae for the first time. I'm like, okay, someone loves Fall of the Leaf, and I think it's fucking awesome. Totally awesome. It's. But I hear that on here as well. And I pulled this CD today because melodic death metal, this is it. It's not Swedish, but it's Finnish. But I cheated a little bit, so had to be talking about.
I think for me, like the bands that really like got me interested in it, it was still very specific stuff. Like I have it here. I don't have any CDs. They're all in the basement because of the move, but I've got a couple 7 inches upstairs. So I got the 2 Dark Tranquility. This one in particular, Mooncloud Reflection, I think is some of the most ambitious melodic death metal. And again, even though it's like Gothenburg, it doesn't sound like Gothenburg stuff. It sounds pretty like alien to what they would end up doing, where like the Baroque qualities of Skydancer, where it's just this like florid affair of like layers and just it's beautiful. And it is a death metal record. Like when you isolate those guitars, I know that they feel differently, but it is absolutely a death metal record. Yeah, I think it's more specific releases than like a band as a whole, because like otherwise I'd say like got some others like the Cromlech and Darkness Fell demo. This is a very important band, I think, especially for fans of Eucharist. I mean, it's basically an audition tape for some of those dudes to be involved with Eucharist. But yeah, there are really specific ideas on these albums. If we want to, we could talk about them, but even something as simple as like Nightingales, but specifically like Sylph-like, the mini CD.
Yeah.
Great things happening on that, or like a Contreras Quintet's As Tears versus Silence of the World Beyond. Yeah.
That Nightingales album is really good. When it came out, I was so over the sound. I'm like, dude, this is just derivative. They're trying to sound Swedish. They're German. It pissed me off, but now I ended up I gave my CD away. I ended up rebuying it because it's so good.
Did you see Dark Millennium is back together and they did the Apocryphal Wisdom, whatever it is? What maybe it's not even that song. I don't know. They did something and they have Christian from Nightingales like singing with them. It's really cool. It's a recent video on YouTube I'd recommend people check out. Also, if you don't know Dark Millennium, Ashore the Celestial Burden, it is not melodic death metal, but it is death metal that is melodic. And that's kind of like stupid. That is the stupid thing we're here to talk about, right? Like, what does that mean?
And that kind of bleeds into the next thing. Why Sweden? How did these bands arrive at such a sonic vibrance? Because it's kind of a thing. It's its own special little moment in time. Why do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about the history of how those bands related to each other, or if they were, friends or influenced each other. I can only assume that, similar things when you've got groups of friends who are in different bands, like, we've had in Minnesota, that there's some influence that rubs off and kind of almost a feeling of, wanting to be at the at the same level and not let each other down in terms of not delivering the same quality as your friends. So I've got to guess that was part of it, but beyond that, I just don't understand. Yeah, maybe it's ABBA.
It's ABBA.
Yeah, it's
Those
gotta be
harmonies, man. Those melodies. That could be it. It could be ABBA.
Norway didn't have studios to record in. That's why Darkthrone had to do, Soulside Journey. So there's just too much happening in Stockholm and Gothenburg, and it's not like they're like that far away. Like Oslo and Gothenburg are right next to each other. So I think people like Thomas Nyquist and the Merciless dudes, it depends if you want to call like a band like Dismember melodic death metal or a prototype of melodic death metal, which I think is like insulting to what they do in some ways. Whereas Unanimated, it's a little more gray. But we're talking about like not this bullshit where it's power metal with screaming, but not something that's just like as simple and reductive as like Jesper Stromblad would say, where it's like parallel thirds Iron Maiden with screaming, like it's not that simple either. Like there are bands, I think in Sweden, especially like Thomas Nyquist, he was the one who convinced John from Dissection to like have his vocals shriek more. Like he's the one who made that recommendation, whether you'd heard it before. A bunch of people cited Henke Forsch from Dawn, Marcus from Eucharist, including Henke Forsch, was influenced by that. Like there are drum patterns on the first Dawn album that are like spot on what Daniel Johansson did on A Velvet Creation too. Like the influence of Eucharist and Dissection can't be overstated. At the Gates can be. I don't think like they dropped Gardens of Grief in 1991, and that's a demo, regardless of how it's packaged now, it's a demo. Trial of Life Decayed by Dark Tranquillity came out the same year. These guys are like years younger and have just as much ferocity. And I don't think neither of them like necessarily have that Gothenburg style that you come to know or you get bored of. Like with an Everdon record falling in your, mailbox while you have to review it, Marty. But like somewhere between those places, like 1991, the things that, Edge of Sanity was doing, Dan Swano was doing for people, this is where it gets interesting, like Catatonia, no, but awesome. October Tide, melodic death metal, no, it's not though, melodic death metal is a thing that is neither death metal nor like really melodic, and that it doesn't really like say anything about it. Like melodic death metal is that sort of like thrashy interplay between, like modal intervals, and something like A Blaze My Sorrows, If Emotion Still Burns has so much ambition in it that like, if you're not a musician and you just know do, re, mi, Iron Maiden is do and mi all the time, I mean, that's kind of what you'd think of. Whereas like the re, mi, fa, sol, la, the other stuff in there, like that's what makes this stuff so interesting is they do these sort of traditional metal things, but yeah, black metal's in the air. Everyone's breathing it up. Those vocal styles are there. Recordings aren't great. These are all teenagers in Sweden, so like they have, a brother or a cousin or someone who's like in a black metal band as well. There's just a lot of cross-pollination happening. Eventually you get, Dark Tranquillity, for example, like Nicholas Sundin writing to people like Verathron or Samael and stuff, and like getting this sort of like dark kind of shit happening. And it makes sense that they come across as something that's not death metal, but sentenced, as Hunter and Jeff Wagner perfectly say, is very much like Atheist, just repackaged in a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I mean, that's a lot to think about there. Awesome. I did want to, I totally lost my train of thought. I had something queued up. Alan, do you have something?
No, sorry. I've been trying to navigate through a lot of the chat. A lot of folks have really good insights and are enjoying it. So I was keeping up with that as well.
Damn it. I had something. White Claw sucked it out of my brain.
I disagree. This is Trial of Life Decayed was more of a holdover from Septic Broiler. I mean, here's the Septic Broiler with Daffy Duck on it. Like, I don't
show it again.
This sucks. This is beautiful. Void of Tranquility, is that on this? It's incredible. I'd be curious what your opinion is on that if you have a comment, but I don't quite understand the holdover.
How does Carcass fit in? I mean, I don't think they do, other than they've got, oh, what's his face in the band? Heartwork.
Michael Hammett.
Yeah.
One Armageddon, and Black Earth by Arch Enemy 2. Those are Wrong Again releases, but again, like late to the game, if you're really talking about like where did this come from, you did Heartwork, you did these things already. Like Armageddon fucking rules, by the way. Like the first Arch Enemy rules, like a lot of Arch Enemy rules. But
Heartwork for me, it was no longer a band named Carcass, and I've bitched about At the Gates on this channel a bunch, and I know I start going like Red in the Sky Is Ours. I bought that when it came out on tape. I got it home, and Thomas's vocals are fried. People love it. I get it. The riffs are so obtuse and weird, and that's what I want to touch on. Circling back around to Majesties here, we talked about this a bit in the backstage, but I think, because like I said, for me during this time when this stuff was starting to blow up, because it blew up. There was a ton of bands that were kind of getting into this style, copying, In Flames and whatever. It always happens in history. You look back, there's always, happened with Cannibal Corpse, happened with Suffocation, happened with At the Gates. I mean, these bands put out great records.
Mhm.
People can't help but, they can't help themselves, but, emulate their influences. The thing that I listened to the Majesties record for the first time, and I said to myself, was it really this good? I mean, I don't want to, I'm not trying to kiss your ass. I'm just saying that you guys you're older dudes, you're accomplished musicians. I listened to, the heyday of the early 90s, mid 90s of these bands. It's a bunch of young guys stumbling onto a really awesome sound, but structurally their music is confused, immature. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. We just reviewed the Wednesday Album Club was we did Uncanny Splenium for Nyctophobia.
Yeah.
And that band, they kind of had their shit together. They wrote some cool songs. As the album went on, it got a little confused, but there's always something on these early Swede bands that it just sounds a little underdeveloped. And you guys are influenced by this stuff, but you took it to the next. Let's talk about the songwriting real quick before we jump off into our, the next phase of our conversation. The songwriting. I mean, obviously you've got to, as musicians, yeah, you love it. You came up on it, you cut your teeth on this stuff, but you got to realize there's just some imperfections in the style that may have impacted that style, made it, better. But what do you think about all that stuff?
Do you mean as far as like what imperfections do we notice that may have had an influence on?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you guys took the good stuff from that era, and you left the bad stuff behind. You paid close attention to structure. I mean, your songs, they go in a direction. They're not, like Carl mentioned earlier, linear. There's a lot of linear shit going on and a lot of crazy transitions in that early sweet, melodic stuff. Some bands got it right. In Flames is one of them. But there are other bands, you could tell they're young dudes emulating a sound they love. They're playing some amazing melodies, but their structuring is confused, childish, whatever. That was all part of the charm of it. Don't get me wrong, but you guys kind of came at it with a different ear, I think.
Yeah, Carl, can you speak to that?
Well, yeah, I think the linear songwriting, which was something that we would specifically tried to capture at the very beginning when we started. We specifically talked about that as we wanted to do it that way, because a lot of, if you look at more of the latter day In Flames and Dark Tranquility, their songwriting styles changed to more of a standard rock song structure where it was a verse and a chorus and you're kind of waiting for this big chorus to come. And I don't think we wanted to feel like that. I mean, these songs really felt like we wanted to tell a story, and to do that, it had to evolve through the beginning to the end of the song, instead of just being a delivery mechanism for repeating the same hooks over and over again. So and we do sometimes do that in songs. We'll bring something back if we really feel like we want to have something, put an exclamation point on it. But beyond that, it was really a matter of let's have this evolve from the beginning to the end in a way that keeps our interest along the whole development of the song.
Right.
I think there was it's just really nice that like the way Carl and I work, like I definitely don't have a lot of structure like with songwriting. I mean, in my life too, but I was talking about songwriting. And what I meant to say is like I will keep writing riffs, and Carl will attest to this more than probably, as anyone that's been to my house and had to see the hard drives. But,
the many hard drives.
I have a lot of ideas, and I will just keep writing riffs because it's fun. That's when I'm like excited. That's what I do. I don't sit down and I'm like, fucking verse. How are vocals gonna come into this? So I guess not that Carl isn't capable of wildness, as anyone heard Inexorum, but like I think Carl has really helped me, not tame me, although you probably have done that too in a really great way, but you've made me more aware of like what it is to kind of stick to stuff like a little more structured, because the strength of things that are barely there, almost falling apart, like the Blaze My Sorrow first album, as great as it is, it's faster than they're capable of playing. And we are using Superior Drummer. Like talking about something like, when does Superior Drummer matter? Do you want to program push and pull? Do you want to like make your whole time like orientation to be like 130 BPM, 124, 136? You want like you want to fake that? It's really difficult. Like I think there are interesting things that happen in a lot of melodic death metal where it's like someone got their way for like a song, and it might be the reason I own that album, because I feel like it's an idea that could still be developed. And I think because it was so saturated, a lot of those albums that are like really quality kind of just get looked over for things that are sort of second rate, like Midwinter. I was trying to make you feel bad.
I don't feel bad. I mean, I haven't listened to that album in a while. I spun it a little bit today because I remember it being in this realm. Yeah, I listened to it. I'm like, it still holds up for me.
I like that record.
I like that record.
Yeah, I'm sure it's good.
Right. But that right there is a telltale sign of a healthy band. I'm in a band situation as well. I can write riffs. I write 2 or 3 that go together really well, but I tend to not know what the fuck to do with them. I want to go verse, chorus, some stupid bridge. I mean, I'm still in the early Swedish, teenager realm where I still don't know how to write a proper song. And it's good to have somebody that's like, no, try this, try that. And having a drummer, he can sometimes throw in his 2 cents too, because he's the one piecing it all together for you. But that's when, I mean, I've done writing music by myself, and Tanner has as well. And it's a breath of fresh air to get into a situation with a bunch of musicians that share your enthusiasm, your talent, and passion to see the project through to the end. And actually you grow. I mean, you're both killer players, but you're helping each other in different ways become better musicians. And that's the key to a healthy band, and writing an album like the ones you guys just did, that actually it runs with your influences, but creates spits something out at the other end that has a little bit more maturity and grace to it. And again, the hype train is right on this one, and cheers to you guys. It's really an outstanding. You guys did great. I mean, I love all the stuff you've done as well leading up to this. It wasn't a surprise, but very, very awesome. Very good. And it made me want to revisit that era and see what, try to go back how many ever decades and say, was it, I had such a negative thought in my head of it because there was so much of it and I was so burnt out on. I was ready for the black metal. I was ready for black metal. Black metal. I moved from death metal completely into the Norwegian stuff, and then into the cult stuff, and the bedroom dude with the black metal makeup on and the drum machine. I fell into that. I loved it. It was such a refreshing break from everything else that was exploding and devouring itself, basically.
I think that's normal, though. I mean, everyone has to take a break. If you've heard 100 records that sound the same, do you want that 101st one, or do you want to switch things up? And I think that's normal. I mean, I've gone through phases where I gravitate towards one style or another and need a break from something, especially if there have been any records that come out that are in the style that are not quite as much what I was hoping for as I wanted them to be. So that's totally normal. I mean, it's not, it should be like that. I mean, you don't want things to be stagnant. And I think for us doing this record was just because we hadn't heard anything new that sounded quite like this super specific niche style that we liked for a while. And so we wanted to do it because we wanted to hear it ourselves.
That's what the point is like when you're making a genre record, sure, someone's going to hear Inexorum, they're going to hear Psychoad and stuff, but like, I feel like I gave a bad answer, but I don't know that I could give a better one when someone's like, can you name some more obscure bands that you're influenced by? And it's like, yeah, not for Majesties though, like not after 1995 or 6, like those are the things where it's like, when we're talking about sort of first language, it's not like we perfected it or something. Like we were just listening to it like everyone else that was obsessed with it. It's a very popular kind of music, but like, why isn't Fatal Embrace in there? Like, why aren't those gems in there? Is because like those informed things much later for me. I really think like with something like Majesties, there are certainly like ideas within albums like that, but like you are really trying to capture something that happened at a pretty specific point in time. And so to be like, let's bring in new influences there is sort of like antithetical to like what we're trying to do. Like you are bound for disappointment when you're asking us like, what are you influenced by? It's like literally the rosters of these labels, like everyone else had access to, like those bands that came later, like In Thy Dreams, even like, I forget when that demo was recorded, but it was re-released as an EP and Wrong Again, maybe 97. Like these Mythotine, talk about a band like that is not credited as melodic death metal, res metal. Like you were asking, what's the difference between writing melodic death metal, melodic black metal? Who knows back then, like,
and the differences aren't that different. I'm sorry. You listen to Dissection, Sacramentum, Winterland, that stuff is kind of, it depends on who you are. Some say it's black metal, some say it's melodic death metal. It's very fucking similar.
Or you can just say Black Death and be done.
Yeah. Right.
And even that has its own connotations. I don't know. It's too challenging, and a lot of times I feel like I can't really describe it accurately.
That profanity.
Nice.
Yeah.
This isn't even on YouTube. I checked. I love the album Stronger Than Steel. It's very bombastic, kind of heavy metal, but this one is definitely black metal, like more melodic black metal, but not quite in the like early Maze of Torment style.
Right on. Alan, did you have anything we've kind of just been rambling. Is there anything that you had that you wanted to ask these guys? And I really have to go pee. So I'll let you chat. I'm going to go do that, and we'll jump into what's coming next. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. A couple of folks have asked in the chat, are there plans to tour with Majesties? The album's obviously getting a pretty good reception. People seem to be thirsty for this kind of metal. Are there thoughts about trying to get some small tours for it? Are you definitely planning it, or is this strictly a studio project?
Well, having John opens doors for us that that we didn't anticipate, but we're grateful for. So we don't have anything that's specifically planned, but I think our short-term focus is to start working with John on some new music, and that's what we're probably going to spend most of this year doing. But beyond that, we're open, I think, to considering different things that might involve live shows, whether or not it's a tour or one-offs. I'm not sure what that'll look like, but yeah, the logistics of living on halfway across the country have to be factored into. So
sure,
we have to make sure that we plan things pretty well in advance. But
Right.
But yeah, we're stoked that this is, at least we have the ability to look forward to that horizon.
Yeah. You also have the logistics that y'all have other projects going on that you want to just. I'm assuming you don't want to drop everything else and just do Majesties. You've got other, bands and other commitments on those projects too.
That's an interesting thing too, because like for me at least, all of Majesties is live lineup for Psycho 2 sans John Kerr. Talk about like more distances. Owen the drummer moved to Ireland, so like it's not like it's an inconvenience, for practicing, but like, yeah, ideally we would get together for one band or the other, and probably it would make sense to practice for the other as well. So there are a lot of things that could just work out pretty well, but I think we're all still feeling out how to make that happen, and then kind of putting a little bit of caution in front of us to be like, let's get to album number 2 and talk about that on the way, because there was a PR campaign for this album that we didn't quite have as much a part of, but we participated in, whereas like a lot of releases on a label like 20 Bucks Spin, the campaign starts way before the album and the tours get booked before then. It is a different kind of setup, and we just didn't release this album as a band intending to do that. So, but I will say it was it was really flattering to get some tour offers immediately when that record dropped. And
again, it's a testament to what you guys made. It just is.
Thanks.
They wouldn't ask if they didn't like it. I mean?
And if they didn't think people were going to come and see it, that they know it's going to get a good reaction.
Yeah, Carl, maybe we could get like the Halo Effect as our backing band.
Oh, that would be perfect.
You know what? That's been in my queue to buy. I just have been too cheap. I want it cheaper than what I can find it online. Is it good? I mean, I know it's more commercial, but with the 3 songs I've heard, I've liked. They're really poppy, but dude, my kid is so into the poppy European stuff, like, Angus McSix, Glory Hammer, Windrose.
Yeah.
I am so little more poppy sheen. It doesn't bother me as much these days, as much as I hate to say it, but
no, it's great. I mean, the vocals are still amazing. I mean, I don't know how
he sounds amazing.
Yeah,
totally amazing.
So good. And it's fun. It's just fun to hear them all playing together again. So it's not the frenzied riff fests of olden days, but it's still they're good songs, and I enjoyed listening to it. So yeah,
I gotta get it. It's in my. I've got it like in my eBay cart. It's been sitting there forever, but there's so much other crap that I end up. Whatever, doesn't matter. So yeah, we kind of got there. I did want to throw out a few things that I thought early influences to this stuff. This older albums that I thought were cool, members that were in bands that end up being a little more melodically aligned, important bands for Sweden. This came out in 80 something. The Mephisto, the demos.
Yeah, 86 and 85, 87.
They both came out. Both these demos came out the same year, actually.
Okay.
Megalomania and the Puzzle. They came out in 86, I think. But maybe this isn't straight up Melodeath, but you got these acoustic intros that have that feel. You got these amazingly melodic solos on this thing. This is early. This is definitely, there's a little bit of a stamp on that as well. And then you've got, I threw my notes away. Oscar and Jesper Stromblad from In Flames and this Ceremonial Oath. Again, this is pretty brutal to its core, but there's some melodicism here and there. Jesper played drums on this, I believe. Nope, he played bass. Sorry. Oscar, who went on to be in Crystal Age, which I also pulled. Oh, hold on. Tanner's got the 7-inch. Awesome.
Cool.
And when that band disbanded, we've got Oscar, who went on to be, there's a big splooge of something. I spilled something on the tape case, but this is a Crystal Age
Are you sure it's not like a membrane from an alien being that wore shin guards?
No, I was impatient and bought the tape because I've always wanted the CD and I never wanted to pay for it. And then I didn't have the money when the vinyl came out, but so I got the tape. But this is Crystal Age's Divine Horizon, Far Beyond Divine Horizons. And after this, Oscar went on to do Hammerfall. And then you also have bands like this, Grotesque, In the Embrace of Evil. Granted, this is not melodic death metal at all, but you got members here. You've got Necrolord, who ended up being on a million different covers, Liars in Wait, and a whole bunch of other shit. Diabolique, I think it was another band he jumped into as well. So, I mean, then you've got Thomas Lindberg, Tampa, who went on to be in At the Gates.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, at one point, Grotesque. You've got Shamati, who did Arcanum. I don't know what albums he played on or if he was just live or what the deal was, but these are all Who's Who type bands. Early influence to what would end up boiling up into. And Tanner said this isn't melodic death metal, and I agree with you. But I just wanted to throw this out here as well because there's a melodicism here that is very Swedish to me. It's very dark and depressive. But the Catatonia, the early Catatonia stuff.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's the best.
Dance of December Souls, and of course, For Funerals to Come. Absolutely haunting, depressive, amazing melody. Again, there's something going on in the waters of Sweden that just...
It makes funerals come.
It does, exactly. And that's probably what this... Ultimately, that's what's on this Crystal Age tape. I hate to say that, but it might have been a little dribble. But yeah, so I don't know how you guys want to get into this, but the idea was to show, we started off saying, let's show favorites from Gothenburg, but realized that was probably a little too limiting. So why don't we expand it to all of Sweden? Carl, we'll start with you. I don't know. We've all kind of realized that we don't have as much as we thought we did due to me. I went through a phase where I'm like, I'm sick of this crap and purged a lot of it. You know, financial stuff, you sell some shit. It's just the way it goes. But
I wanted to get I have the Grotesque mini LP on Dolores Records, and it's fucking signed, and I can't find it. Or I found it earlier, but I was like, we're not going to talk about that.
Well, I mean, that's the record that really first sealed the deal for me. I mean, a friend of mine, and I've told the story a bunch now, but it's funny. I used to hear about new bands from a couple of buddies of mine who would go out and buy everything, and they would call me up and say, hey, we just you should get it. And so I would hear a lot of this stuff for the first time with Mike or Rob playing this stuff to me over the phone on my landline. And I got a call from the guys once, and they said, yeah, we just got this comp, Wrong Again Records, and I've got 2 words for you, In Flames. And they played the song from this EP that's also on that comp, and that was it. I was like, yeah, that's the sound I've been wanting to hear forever. And the rest of that comp is full of just amazing stuff too. I mean, Eucharist, Dark Tranquility, Miscreant. I'm forgetting who else is on it, but because I don't have that EP or I don't have that comp here, but this was really the one that was like, yeah, this is a magical band. I want to chase that down, and everything else on that comp, I was really eager to track down too. At the time, I could only get it through imports, so I got a lot of that stuff by just looking at descriptions in like Dark Symphony's mail order catalogs. So if anything was described as being melodic death metal, and a lot of times they list other bands that recommended for fans of In Flames. So if I saw that, I'd be like, yes, I'm buying that. And I got a lot of stuff that I liked from that process, and very few things that I didn't, at least in the early days.
Awesome. Tanner, we're going to go to you.
Yeah, I totally agree with Carl. Like, that was a really important comp. And also Voices of Death Records in Sweden had a couple good ones. I think that like maybe 3 or 4. I think at least 2 of them, but like, yeah, that was, I don't remember who's on them, but they were like bands with like NEP that I like wrote to and would get the things from, like Yeah, what was the question? Just
So
looking-
we're just showing favorites. We're
Okay.
showing. We're gonna do one at a time. Go around round robin.
Okay. You know what? I have a really soft spot in my heart for Naglfar, which is not Gothenburg. They're from Sundsvall. But
Vitra is their best. I've not heard the demos, but Vitra is great.
this is We Are Naglfar. Fuck you. Yeah.
We almost called our album the same thing.
Yeah. We almost said
We all Naglfar, fuck you.
Yeah, yes.
that would've
We are
worked.
Majesties.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
No, but we would have said the title would have been "We Are Naglfar."
Mhm.
Yes.
No,
We are Jens Ryden. We now take photos of bands and don't play band. This is the Stella Trajectio tape. I think Enslaved the Astral Fortress is like one of the coolest songs. Again, it is not melodic death metal. It's probably closer to your like midwinter shit or like.
I don't care. I like that midwinter CD. I'm not ashamed.
I know. I'm just kidding, but I'm saying like when you think of like Vinterland and stuff like that, like Noctis or bands like that, like there's definitely more of this kind of going on. But yeah, on a similar note too, like why not Sarcasm right here? Like
Oh, they're great.
Burning Red Sunset.
Yeah.
This is an incredible demo. It really stands on its own. It's just furious and God, you should listen to it.
Right on.
And that's a band that's still going and still doing stuff that I think is really cool. I would say that if you hadn't heard new Sarcasm material, it's worth checking out.
And Burial Dimensions is half of that tape. It's just re-recorded. Yeah.
All right, Alan, what's your first poll for the evening?
Let's see. Those are both good ones that I had in my stack as well. Something, again, pretty obvious one. Edge of Sanity's Purgatory Afterglow. This one for me really emphasizes kind of the very melodic side of it. More than some of their other albums, which are also good. But yeah, this one just in particular really seems to play into that a little bit more. Some of the songs, there's a little more, speed, a little more melody. Works quite well for that style. Some of the other albums, maybe focus, a little bit more on the heaviness, whereas this one, they seem to back off on that just a little bit and let the songs move forward at a quicker pace. But can't really go wrong with any of their albums, but this has always been my favorite by them, and it's mainly because it has just that little bit more maybe of a melodic element built in.
Black blood, black tears.
Yes, exactly.
So good. Well, Carl showed In Flames, and man, this is probably not the underground one to pull, but I absolutely worship this record. God, talk about. There's a reason why this was kind of the end boss for me. I heard this, songs like Moon Shield. I mean, they start this damn album off with so much emotion and flow. Wow. I mean, every song on here is it's a perfect riff album. The melodies are so emotive and heartfelt, and I love, the gruff but coherent vocal style. It's just the way the vocals sit with the music. I mean, I like brutal shit too, but I mean, the human ear wants to hear melody. Melody is what makes music beautiful. And there's a lot of beauty on this record. There's a lot of heaviness on this record. There's a lot of groove on this record. There's a lot of flow on this record. It's just perfectly composed. It's perfect composition, awesome song structures. Yes, it's In Flames. I mean, these records also rule, but along the way they got good at what they're doing, and they started to write really good songs. They grew up a little bit. They started realizing what it takes to write a good song. And this album, other than the cover, it's so stupid. I'm so sorry. It's really dumb. And this reissue is like all pixelated. You could tell.
Yeah, it looks terrible.
Century Media snapped a picture of the CD and blew it up. It's all pixelated shit. But I mean, really, It's hard to polish a turd. I mean, it really is. I even hate the font they used on it. I don't know. It's just the whole thing. But God, what a great record. There you go. The three.
You ever see this? The
CD,
shaped
yeah.
CD. This
Mhm.
has got a medley, an acoustic medley, and
Goliath's
one
design.
new song. Yeah, it's cool, but you can't. I mean, what can you play this in now? So
Yeah. I had a friend that had that, and he tried putting it in his a CD drive on his desktop.
Oh,
That didn't work well.
or put it
Yeah.
in the CD drive in your car. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
You'll never see it again. But
he got it to play about halfway through before it literally just snapped in half within the
Oh,
disk
man.
drive.
even though this cover's so dumb, I look at this record and I want to listen to it. I mean, as many millions of times as I've spun it, I don't care. I don't care. It's them starting to turn the ship away from super heavy. They're becoming more of a commercial machine at this point. And the next couple albums that came after it are okay, but there's a lot more commercial sheen on it. But this, they perfected where they came from and made a really solid album that's beautiful, heavy as hell, and just so. And I mean, God damn it, man! Just listen. I don't care how many times I've heard these songs. They're so well written, and the melodies are so strong. It just doesn't get old. It doesn't age. It's great, perfect, great, heavy, fuzzy production. Awesome stuff. So yeah, I'm the cheese ball that picked In Flames Just a Race, but I don't care, man. This is the end boss of that style for me. After this, it was just everybody else suckling at the teats. It's just not the same. Anyway,
I'll never forgive them for not using that original logo after that record. I mean, that logo is so cool.
they were destined to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
a label thing, and we've matured, and fuck that, dude. Anyway,
It is one of the all-time great logos, though, Carl.
Yeah.
I agree.
Mhm.
you're back, Tanner. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
I want to say all the same things about the Just Race. Like Subterranean is amazing, but it couldn't have been more than an EP. To my imagination. I mean, it already has 4 metal songs and 2 different drummers. So I don't know. They pulled it off, but yeah, they were very ambitious. Jester was very ambitious. Lunar Strain is like a really half-baked album by its standards then. Now it's amazing, but like the Wrong Again deal was achieved because of a 3-song demo, and Jesper lied about having the rest of the album written. That's why you have like the folk songs that he didn't plan. Like you can tell he was throwing it together and then starting to take it seriously, because of hype. So, I mean, I don't know. Subterranean definitely did it. It made up for it. But then Just Race is like, hey, let's write songs.
Yeah, agreed.
They definitely hadn't figured out that, like, in order to do that, you need a minimum of 3 guitar players to play live.
Yeah.
But it's incredible.
I just want to talk. We went on a lot about drums and stuff, and then Jack says the drumming holds Just Race back. You want to hear albums that have people consider classics that have bad drumming? I'll give you 2. Paradise Lost, Gothic. That album has got really shitty drums. Shades of God also, same drummer. And is it Corellianismus, Amorphous? I love that record. I love it, love it, love it. But the drums are really, I could probably play drums on that record, which is not saying a lot. But I mean, I'm so enraptured by the riffs and the melodies on Just a Race. I have never even really considered the drums on this. So I guess, you're a little more astute in listening to that stuff than I am. But anyway, what's your next poll, Tanner?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have a lot out here, but let's talk about Dark Tranquility, because it's the other one. I don't understand sometimes why In Flames and Dark Tranquility get brought up so much. Like, when you compare styles, Dark Tranquility is way more ferocious all the time. Like, especially with what they were doing with Of Chaos and Eternal Night and the Gallery. And the Mind's Eye, they're just like very ferocious, got a lot of attack. And In Flames was definitely insanely clever, but they were guitar porn, whereas Dark Tranquility was evolving into young 20-year-olds that were like band porn. Like, they're like, we're all really good. We're all insanely good, actually. And we're going to like put out something great every year. The Enter Suicidal Angels EP, Beyond the Archetype song, fuck.
It's really good. It's really good.
It's so, all their EPs are great, even if they have like a song from a past album or a future one. I still think the first half of The Mind's Eye is incredible. Again, I can't overstate like how important Skydancer is to me personally.
I pulled it, but I think I like the gallery a little bit better. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, you're not alone. I think I will like the gallery again, but I just really still identify with like where they were at on Skydancer, because for them that was a compromise too. They were getting criticized, for not being brutal enough over and over again, which is interesting. Anders Javart played on a couple songs in Subterranean. Yes, he did. And then Daniel Erlandson from Eucharist. I guess we could talk about Eucharist. I don't know what there is to say besides like you should listen to them. I mean, except the new album. Mirror Worlds is good.
That's what I pulled because that's the only one I have. I hate to be that guy, but their demo is fucking awesome.
You're not a weirdo there though, because like they really did record it. Here's something more important than Eucharist. Here is like Wrong Again Records started because Wes and Pear were like, we need to get these like 16, 17-year-old kids back together because they're incredible. So like those two of those guitar players couldn't even be in the studio together. Marcus tracked alone. A Velvet Creation is very much like we're done. Like the fact that they even did something again in the future with just Marcus and Daniel is something, but like Wrong Again Records, like War 001 is a Velvet Creation. That's what they intended to do. That's why they became a label. Like that's how important that band was.
And it really sucks that album didn't get a proper production because that production is pretty rough.
I think Johansson wrote that Eucharist demo when he was like 14.
Wow.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff that adds up. Yeah, he's definitely 14 or 15 in like 91 or 2. So
all right.
Yeah, the production on the A Velvet Creation was a barrier for me at first, but
yeah,
that can be fun too, is to push through a production. When I know that I'm hearing something that is exciting to me, I'm willing to push through a production that's maybe not as optimal. So I've come to love that record a lot more, but it was hard to penetrate at first. Yeah, it's quiet, and then the drums just have this really overwhelming presence in the mix too.
Yeah. All right, Alan, what's your next one?
See, did Carl get a turn? Did we skip Carl?
Yeah, didn't we start with Carl?
Yeah.
No.
I got to go.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Let's see. This one's kind of in between. This band has similarities to the heavier Swedish bands like Entombed, but they also have a lot more melody than Entombed, especially on this album. It's Desultory's Bitterness.
Mm.
So the big difference here, was mainly just in the songwriting, with the guitarist that they didn't rely as much on the HM2 vibes as Entombed and Dismembered and that strain of Swedish bands. This one, they had much stronger guitar lines for the songs. Works really well. The first album's good too. I've always liked this one a little better.
What about Swallow the Snake, dude?
Yeah, they should have. The joke. It's coming. They should have spit instead of swallowed on that one. Because he left the band. You lost your a big part of the songwriting block there. But yeah, you also kind of a cool different color scheme on the cover. It's not blue or shades of blue for a change. But yeah, so not melodic death metal in the same sense as In Flames and Dark Tranquility and Eucharist, but something in between, showing that you could work more melodies into what the other death metal bands in Sweden were doing, and have it turn out really, really cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm next.
And it's over to you then. Yes.
All right. When it comes to this band, I can never decide which one I like most. I heard this one first, so it typically is the one I love the most. That's kind of how human nature is. But and then this album, Slaughter Son, Crown of the Triarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. But the problem is with it for me is it's a bit long. So this one's a bit too short. This one's a bit too long. So Goldilocks, I needed that middle transition album for the perfect just right. But man, I love this stuff. Henke Floros's vocals are absolutely scathing. These guys were great, and obviously a big highlight for Necropolis Records back in the day. This is the sweet spot. Again, I think that this to me is melodic death metal. I think I've heard some people call this black metal. I don't get it. It just doesn't work for me that way. But
I mean, maybe because he called himself Vampire.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
I always loved the Afro helmet on. Oh, where is it?
That's the afflicted dude, Philip von Seegren or whatever.
I was Karsten Larson actually.
Oh, right, from fucking Mythotine. Sorry.
Yeah. This is a bad picture of the helmet, but it's kind of like the Messiah Marcolin helmet, but there's like a profile picture in one of the promo posters, and it's impressive. It is worthy to buy all their stuff just for the helmet alone. Just saying. But absolutely searing melodies, great, well written. But man, Slaughter Son, one song too long, or would I say two songs too long? I'm just gonna say one song too long. But
which song would you take off?
By the end of it, Malediction Murder, I would say I would take off. And it's not because it's a bad song. It's just because the hammering is so consistent. I'm ready for a break. One song less on this would have been listening to it on a car ride. I'm always reminded of how long it is. But anyway, it is heavy gloss coating. Yes. Oh wait, let me check. I'll give it the scratch and sniff test. I can't smell anything. My nose is full of boogers. I can't smell anything. Sorry.
I think we're beginning to understand what happened to your Crystal Age tape.
Right on. Carl, you're up next.
Well, I think I spoiled the surprise, but this is I showed this earlier, so it's not that cool. But I really enjoy this. This is the first Nightingales LP, and I'm not sure who the cover artist is. I'm not sure if this is Andreas Marshall or not, but it feels like it's in that same vein. But it's just a ripping album. They're not. We've left Sweden behind though, so I guess I'm breaking the rules. They're German, and I feel like they kind of have a little bit of a raw edge that I appreciated, especially when that album came out. It was pretty aggressive, and it had, I don't want to say it sounds like German thrash because that'd be a cheap association, but it did have a lot of aggression that I really liked. It's very thrashy. Good, it's a killer record, and they're still making good records now, which is awesome. I love seeing bands that were doing this in the early days still really going for the throat now, and I feel like they're doing that on their more recent records too.
I remember getting the promos for Thunder Beast and something after it, and it just they fell victim to the label artist that was just really horrible, and I don't remember those records being very well liked by myself or many other people. The first one was always great. The demos. We'll talk about why the demo is always better later.
Yeah, they probably had a period in the middle of their career which wasn't that great. It's the stuff they've done in the last couple of years that has really been close to this quality again. Like the last, I know I've got their stuff here somewhere, but yeah, it's worth checking out their last couple of albums that have just come out in the last few years for sure.
Okay.
See, I didn't even know they were back together. That's awesome. Yeah.
They definitely looked back, I think, and said, what was our favorite part of our whole career as a band, and it's that first record and first demo, and that's what they're kind of mining that field again.
Okay. Yeah, they always felt like a band that was just a hair late to the party. That when they were getting their first push, a lot of people were just like, people were already, so entrenched with the other bands, like, this just kind of sounds like the other bands. And so it was that first wave where people were feeling like, maybe I've had enough of this style for the time being, like you were saying earlier, Marty, that you were ready to move on to other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people having that reaction to Nightingales when it first came out.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, you are back. My
Yeah.
lord.
I think it's interesting just because, I mean, the album Carl Held Up came out in 1997. Considering the kind of like lag with labels, especially when you're putting out on Nuclear Blast. I mean, Sylph-Like came out in 1995. If you want to talk about like the time where the style exploded and really was, you were unique if you're putting out anything of any caliber that was approaching this style. You have Excretion's Voice of Harmony. This is the same year Slaughter of the Soul came out, so it couldn't have been like necessarily ripped off, just yet. But like Autumn Leaves from Denmark, another one. If you want to talk about like a Mind Confused, the band that Kamos, formed from, like those are interesting bands. I would throw in a Knorrs Quintet with these two, just because like
They were great.
More down-tuned and like ferocious. This is the demo. I'm not crazy about the demo. I think As Tears, that song like When Emptiness Dies, I don't know, something like that is amazing. All of that's great, but like the first album is incredible. And yeah, I just think a lot of that kind of stuff where it was like really down-tuned but very audible and like passionate, shrieking vocals. Because a lot of these albums came out and I think we didn't really have like a timeline for them. So like, I just think if you were putting out melodic death metal in 1995, like you have a claim to the throne. So I have a small list in front of me that I made for this just in case, because I was curious.
We're going to get to that list. I think that's going to be, you took the time to do it. I think it would be very cool to go through it towards the end if you're up for it.
Yeah.
All right. Professor Steele.
Let's see. It's this band, half the time they're very melodic and half the time they're, a bit more brutal. So again, a little bit outside the normal box of what we think of as, Gothenburg stuff. But Hypocrisy, has done, a lot of very cool melodic things, in that style. Other times they just, play very straightforward and kind of, rip your face off with speed and aggression, but, they can also, back that off when they want to. And, the better Hypocrisy albums always have a good balance of those two things. They don't go, full on brutality, and they don't go full on melodicism either. I'm having to show it on the phone because, Carl, like you were saying earlier, yeah, my Hypocrisy CDs all got purged a long time ago. So I still have digital copies of a lot of them, but
The financial call, it's real.
Yep. Yeah. You got to pay the rent sometimes.
Yep.
But yeah, and I always like Hypocrisy most when they're either getting kind of slow and doomy. They get really good at the atmospheres. And yeah, when they have, those extra, little bit of, melodic elements, and, the faster aggressive songs are fine, but sometimes those start to feel a little interchangeable at times, whereas the other songs always stand out really well.
All right.
Marty, what you got next, sir?
This is kind of off the beaten path, but the melody is undeniable, kind of leaning into black metal a little bit because of the people that's involved. But this album, I know Tanner in particular will stand at attention and salute, but Via Dolorosa by Ophthalmia.
Oh yeah.
This is complete. I think I hear a little more obsequiae from this than I do Majesties, but this here for me, this album, I was bitching about Slaughter Sun being long. This album is long, but yeah. I love the riffs on it so much. I don't care. The thing that really bothers me is the Death Crush cover at the end. I don't know if it was that way on the original pressing. This is a Century Black US reissue that I got as a promo sent back in the day. But who's in this band? You've got It, who was in Abruptum. Was he in War?
Yeah, so was all.
Yep, and Vondor.
Dread, yep. John, Emil Nodvite.
Yep, you got Emil Nodvite from, John Nodvite's brother. You've got Legion from Marduk singing. and you've got Bernie Larson, I want to say, from Edge of Sandy on drums. Dread. This is an awesome supergroup, and the riffs on this album are awesome. Awesome. I mean, I like the album that came before it. The album that came after it's okay, but this is wow. There's some great riffs on here. Pure melody. There's no real, and it's very. There's not a lot of layering on this. There's like if there's a melody playing, there's a bass line underneath it. That's it. There's no other guitar. There's no other guitar voice following a chord progression. It's got a very two-dimensional feel to it, but it's the melody that's actually being played. And then of course Legion, he doesn't have a lot of dynamics on this album. He kind of does one thing really well, and it works really good here. His vocals are great.
You don't like his spoken like Legion, my name is
Legion. He's like
conspiracy.
He's talking like fucking Yoda. Legion, my name is. Yes.
It's just how they talk, listen to trash. They go on vacation,
Vacation, yes. But if you've never heard Ophthalmia Via Dolorosa, this is something you should definitely jot down and check out. And I really hate the fact that they crapped on the flow of this record by tagging on a lame ass cover of Death Crush by Mayhem. I know it's a popular Mayhem song. People love Death Crush. I'm not a big Death Crush fan. It could have been left off this pressing, but anyway, Via Dolorosa, check it out. My victims, exactly. Carl, you're back. What you got?
Well, I'm cheating because I'm showing two at the same time, but
that's fine.
The first couple unanimated.
I had this one.
Yeah, that's the original cover. This is the reissue. So these are both rebuys because I again had one of those bad purges a while back. But I mean, I wouldn't say that it's what I would classify specifically as melodic death metal, but there's an element, especially on the second album, that is just a hook after hook after hook, and there's kind of some weird rock and roll tendencies, like there's one guitar player really likes the bluesy guitar solos, and the other one seems to want to metal it up a little bit more. So that there's an interesting tension on that as far as the guitar interplay, but it really works, and they're both fun records, and really relentless too, especially the second one.
See, I thought I had that. I was looking, I'm like, there's like things that I thought I had that are like not here anymore. It's like the last time Tanner was here, I think I gave you a couple of Gourmet 7-inches. I'm like, I'm glad they went to a good home. But I was looking through my box, like I thought I had those 7-inches. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm talking to the guy tonight that I gave them to. But killer band, by the way, Gourmet. We talked about them earlier, but I don't know that they really fit within this realm. They're more of a Stockholm heaviness, I think. But I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Great band, though.
Best Finnish band from Sweden.
Yep. Right. Tanner, you're up next. What you got?
Someone was late and asked about Sentenced. I was just going to repeat something that we all, I think, feel pretty similarly to. I don't know. I feel like it's enlightening. Radical research talking about the atheist worship in that album. Can never put my finger on it, and once it was said, it was like I will never hear this the same way again. Yep. So we addressed that. I have it here, but again, I tossed it aside. Just at this point, kind of seeing what I have around. Miscreant's one that deserves.
Hold on, before you move on. I love that North From Here. I love it, love it, love it. But I'm one of the guys that loves Amok. I love that album. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, that's cool.
It is so cheesy gothic, but the Carl McCoy, so good. Anyway, go ahead.
I have the Miscreant promo that got them signed to Wrong Again, and then I have the it's from '93. It's Ashes. It's got a really cool business card. If you want to get a hold of Peter Johansson, you can just call him when he's not working and get a car lesson or something. he's played with a lot of cool bands, so let's come down, try it out.
What if that number is still available?
Yeah. Incredible band. This is another one of those bands where I think good luck finding the tonal center or like good luck finding the principal melody, because there's so much pick scrape on this. Not like Cemetery, whatever Cemetery's debut, I forget. Right
Evil
now.
Shade of Grey.
Evil Shade of Grey. That thing's just like relentless. But like, yes, Ashes is so good. And like, there's just so much weird push and pull and play. Also, this drummer does not play a double kick at all. Makes it really interesting. And Johnny Ranning is just like really emotive. He has a lot of ranges of styles that he utilizes very well. And they just don't sound like anyone. They kind of sound like, like Lunar Strain had some like weird Metallica parts.
Yeah.
I know it's a really generalized idea, but like Miscreant definitely has those. And they're both on that Toys Factory Metal Militia comp, but I don't know. They're playing a style that's like very underground, but it's hard to tell if like these guys are completely oblivious to the fact that like the people that like them are going to love them, but no one else is going to. Because like the way it's presented is like you're going to hear this in an arena, but it's for people who like weird harmonies and like really strange tones. Kind of like, I mean, it's a totally different album, but speaking of like People in Dawn, like somewhat related, like Prodigal Son by Afflicted. What the fuck? Who was that album for? Like even when you look at the music videos and stuff, it's like, I guess everyone, like Miscreant kind of suffered from that same, like, I'm not sure if they had a great identity or not, or if they thought they did, but nowadays it's just a really cool thing, and I would recommend like Dreaming Ice, the album.
It's a great album. I have a dub from Tape Trading Days. It's great.
I have 3 copies, 1 with a blue spine, 2 with a black spine.
Nice.
I don't know. I just when I was able to find them, that's how much I love it. You should listen to it. Listen to it with headphones.
Right. All right.
No, one more thing. Sorry. You should listen to it with my headphones.
You have good headphones?
Come on over, just shoot me a message. We'll stay up.
We'll share a Haagen-Dazs and check out some Miscreant.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be there.
Okay.
Alan.
Let's see. All right. So someone's got to show it. So I guess I'll be the one. Maybe not everyone's favorite. This one.
I love
a lot
that
of
record.
praise over the
it's
years.
Really a great record. I don't care
Yeah.
what anybody says. I like that record.
Yeah. It gets a lot
It's
of flack
better than
because
the
it has,
early shit that everybody loves. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, people love it because, it was kind of a benchmark for the style, but yeah, it catches a lot of flack more perhaps. And someone made this point in the chat earlier that it also kind of linked this kind of melodic death metal to a lot of other metal and metal adjacent genres that would come later that older fans in particular really aren't fans of when you start getting into the screamy stuff and anything with the words mall or core associated with it from the early 2000s. Is that fair to kind of crap on this album because a bunch of bands 10 years later would use it as an influence? That doesn't seem fair. And yeah, Marty, I'd agree with you. This period, Terminal Spirit Disease, I like. This one I like a little bit more. The first 2 at the gates, I go back to them over and over and try to get into them. And I
like the second one. Okay, the first one just sounds so. Tom sounds fucking burnt, man. His vocals sound. It sounds like they played a lot of gigs, and then they're like, "We got to record," and then you got the dude like, "Well, my cousin plays violin. Let's bring him in." Like, oh, okay. This makes no sense with, My Dying Bride. Okay, well, let's do that. And it's like, yeah, everybody loves Elf's vote riffs, and they're awesome, but I don't get it. I prefer the more melodic side. Elf's riffs are from another dimension. That could be a complimentary statement, but it doesn't sit well with me. Anyway, go ahead.
No, kind of the same points. The first 2 I go back. It's not that I hate them. They've never really sunk in for me. They're just a little little bit off the path, but it's love it or hate it, it's definitely one of the most recognizable albums in the style, up there with Jester Race and some of the other ones. So that's all for that one. Everybody knows it. It's not a deep cut or anything.
And I get people now roll their eyes, and I realize it influenced a whole realm of mallcore bands, but that's not At the Gate's fault. I think that's there's a lot of great riffs on it. It's kind of a perfect storm for that band for me. But I get it. Anyway.
Excellent use of papyrus font too.
Right.
Just Erase had, what is that, Comic Sans, and that has papyrus.
Yep. All right, I'm up next. Let's okay. People are like, that's not melodic death metal, it's black metal. No, it's not.
Now, that's what I call melodic death metal, volume 6.
Dissection the Somber Lane.
Yep.
Listen to the very beginning of the Somber Lane and tell me that's not perfect melodic death metal. It's Chef's kiss. Nodvite ended up being a dickhead, but God, he wrote 2 amazing records. The third record, not a fan of. I have friends, me and Tanner have mutual friends that love the third record.
We don't have friends anymore.
Right. Oh, that album's got Starless Eon, and the instrumental on that record are okay. The rest of it. But anyway, I think I like the album that came after this a little bit better. That to me is kind of perfect. This is really amazing. It's melodic death metal. I read an old zine here. I can't remember which one it was I was reading. But John even admitted that he considers Dissection melodic death metal. So put it to rest from the horse's mouth. It's melodic death metal. Absolutely stunning. This is great stuff. Absolutely great. It sucks he ended up being a dickhead, but what are you going to do? Carl, you're back. I need to go pee again because I'm the only one drinking tonight, apparently. So I'll be right back.
Well, let's see. I'm kind of running out of stuff that you haven't already shown. I guess I'll throw this out just because I showed this earlier. This is that Winterland, and I would say this is more, I think this gets described as melodic black metal. I'm only really including it tonight because this is a no fashion. It's so it's got that sort of through line of melody, and I think that's what really set the hook for all these things that I'm involved in today. Is that I like to have as intense as it gets. I like to have that really something that's hummable that I can carry with me, that's not so obtuse or so abrasive that I forget how it really moves from A to B. So I really like that record a lot. It's too bad they didn't do anything else after it, but it's kind of when you do something that's that cool, maybe you don't need to follow it up ever again. So that's my no fashion original from, and I found this recently. I've been looking for it for a long time, and finally scored it.
Nice. Let's see. All right, Tanner, I believe that brings you back up. So, oops, wrong button. So which one would you like to show next, Tanner?
I'm going to showcase this Punishment zine with it on the cover.
Nice.
I don't know. These are impossible to show, like on here, obviously. I don't know. I was hoping Marty would see this. This is the Peaceville Collectors series, the mailer.
I see.
What's that?
I see.
Oh yeah. Do you want it?
Do I want what?
Do you want this?
Sure, I'll take it.
I'm sure it's worth something. I've heard this band is pretty good.
Sell it and use it for your wedding, dude.
What? Use
the money for the wedding.
Oscar keeps saying like he wants to put it off another year. And I'm like, we're not gonna live that long.
Oscar doesn't love Paris's belly scratches. What's wrong with that cat?
I just opened this up, but right away, Voices of Death. Here's the comps that I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty lucky. Oh, Immemorial, like real spelled REAL, like immemorial. That was an incredible band. That also has Martin Kvist from Blaze My Sorrow on the first album, because the second one was Frederick Arneson, who is the vocalist for Cromlech. Back of this, of course, has, No Fashion. There's the ad for the Blaze My Sorrow. And Mark Grinning.
Which is awesome.
Simon Anders, who is it saying, like, I don't know the difference between melodic black metal and melodic death metal. Neither do a lot of these bands that play it.
And it doesn't fucking matter. It really doesn't matter. If you're going to sit and dwell on, tags are what journalists use to try to sell music, and marketing firms use to try to sell. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Black metal, the true essence of black metal is satanic lyrics.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, that's it.
Anyway.
At least, that's what we tell everyone who doesn't show up to the meetings.
Right.
But this is a Blaze My Sorrow's second demo.
You mean skin tags, Ben? Anyway, sorry.
This is fucking amazing. This is Martin Kvist from Immemorial as well, and that guy didn't last long because he just used his throat all the time. I met him. He's awesome. They ended up, with a lot of different singers and kind of, moving around a lot. Before that, they originally signed to No Fashion as a doom band. They might have sounded like Catatonia had this demo actually, worked out and they had recorded this on time, because when they did their No Fashion debut, Thomas Nyquist lost No Fashion Records. So even the ad I showed you, the year that Zine came out, 96 or 95, and he might have been 97, who knows? He didn't own it anymore, like House of Kicks did, or whatever, MDM, whatever it came after. But this is really interesting. If you can track down and not expect melodic death metal, For Bereavement We Cried is a fucking gem. Look at these hunks.
Oh, yeah. Sweet Jordache jeans.
I don't care what you think. They're going after your girlfriends, They're getting in the Thunderbird, like the first season of Highlander, just they're going out with swords and they're just going to antique store. I don't know. I'm lost. The Blaze My Sorrow is amazing. They have like singing, but it's not like we're men who sing. They're like epic, like sort of like choirs in the background that aren't like too subdued or too washed out. They've got like really good thrashy parts, and they've got excellent trade-offs between guitars, like where someone takes a melody and just has really extended and cool phrases, great bass work, a lot of like cool string skipping and leaps while one person kind of like stays in register, and it just kind of like, even though it's not like a lot of crazy panning or something, it creates a lot of dimension for a listener. And you talk about the wild side of melodic death metal, like these songs aren't very long, and it's probably for their benefit because they're fucking insane. If Emotion Still Burns is an incredible melodic death metal album. The only thing I might compare it to, actually, and I wrote it down somewhere on here in my little chronological list, is a shit band called Lothlorien, who has one of the worst album covers of all time, but their demo is actually pretty cool. That one's kind of got some of Blaze My Sorrow energy. It doesn't quite capture the spirit, but like for the time it came out, it was what year? 96. Still good in my book. Like, good for you. So listen to Blaze My Sorrow, especially the first album and the early demos, and then of course catch up.
All right.
Also, I'm going to take a bathroom break too.
Go for it.
All right, be right back.
Alan.
All right, like Carl, I'm kind of getting down to the last few since folks have shown a ton of good stuff already. One we haven't shown that's a good follow-up to Dissection is Sacramentum. Yep. The closest thing you can get to Dissection that's not Dissection, but boy, it sure sounds like Dissection. People
Wait,
always show this
wait,
one, but
wait.
I always liked this one.
Wait, we
quite
got
a
to do
bit,
the
too.
three-way. The three-way.
It's like having
This album
two
is
mirrors
amazing.
across a hallway from each other.
Yep.
But yeah, this one is great. I've always liked the second one quite a bit too. Coming of
The
Chaos
second one's
doesn't-
good, man, but is it
It
as
doesn't
good
get
as
as
Far
much-
Away from the Sun?
it's a little different. It definitely does not. It's underappreciated, if nothing else. It deserves more praise than it gets. But yeah, if you call Dissection, melodic death metal, and I'm one of those, I usually do put these, more on the black metal side of the line, though I very much get, why people would put it, more in the death metal camp. They really straddle the line for me in this style. At the end of the day, don't really care which one we call it. The music is absolutely excellent. Can't go wrong with those.
And again, is it black metal? Is it death metal? I say it's melodic death metal. And that Sacramentum, Far Away from the Sun, I mean, the early stuff is good. The later stuff is good. It's just a good band.
Yeah,
Definitely
exactly.
one of those bands you need to check out.
Regardless of what you call them, they're a very good band.
Yep. Next, we're gonna keep going on the train here with is it black metal? Is it death metal? I think Carl showed this earlier. Vinterland. Welcome to My Last Chapter. This just got a reissue last year, I want to say. I can't remember. Time gets away from me, but obviously very black metal vocally, but musically, you listen to this, it could sit right with Sacramentum, it could sit right with Dissection. Very well written, very well considered harmonies, melodies, all that stuff, with just a bit more aggressive vocal style. Great record. It needed a repress. I actually gave my original copy to Tanner when he was here, and ended up buying a Russian a bootleg of it, and then they repressed it, and I got a copy. So all comes back around. Speaking of coming back around, Carl, what you got?
So I don't know if you've heard this. This is the
Moaning, yeah.
the Moaning, which is one that I discovered more recently when I was just kind of looking for anything that had that vibe that I hadn't picked up when it originally came out. So I think this is a reissue that has been, it's just got all the demos too from 95 and 94. And it's not something that everybody needs to hear. I mean, all the stuff we've already showed is probably, you want to start from zero. We've covered a lot of the basics, but it's more of a, if you like this stuff, here's some more. But it's pretty good. There's it has some of that. We listen to Dissection a lot vibe to it, so it has got some a lot of two beats and blasts and good harmonies. I'd say it's a sort of the quintessential mid 90s. We're also doing it kind of vibe. So it's good for it's a fun time.
Yeah. All right, Tanner.
On my way back from the bathroom, I grabbed this.
Nice.
Marty already showed it, but this one,
That's the real deal.
the first, I think 60 copies were signed. And this is the Black Sun logo, but the store, Dolores Records, was a place you can read about where a lot of people dropped off demos, and I think, a lot of bands heard the bands that inspired them to become the bands they would become. This is kind of a cool relic. This is a Wrong Again promo. It's just a split cassette of Dimension Zero and In Thy Dreams. In Thy Dreams, again, it's 5 songs, but nothing they did after really sounds like this. It's in E flat, which of course Carl and I love. And it's just raging. It's got a lot of parallels to Nightingale Sylph, as far as just kind of energy. I mean, it's got a lot of aggression, but it still has a lot of real passion, a lot of frantic kind of energy, and it's really contained and controlled. I would say the songs are actually pretty mature for the style as well. So everyone probably knows Dimension Zero, but you should definitely, if you've checked out In Thy Dreams, but you haven't checked out that first one, I'd make it a point to do that. In Thy Dreams is almost an At the Gates clone band. I think they were fast. I have like The Gate of Pleasure and Highest Beauty, and they're super fucking fast.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of bands kind of like started doing that more. But I mean, I would put like Without Grief or The Everdawn way before another band for like At the Gates stuff. Also, when you say like At the Gates clones, I always know you mean Slaughter of the Soul, which is the whole like fundamental flaw of what melodic death metal means in my mind, because Red in the Sky Is Ours and With Fear are albums that have yet to be copied.
For a reason.
Yeah.
They're so unique. I mean, that's
they're unique. Yeah.
Yeah, and it took me a while to appreciate them too, but I came around and
Sorry.
There's just a lot. It's like I said earlier with some of the records where you have to get through production. It wasn't so much the case with those, but there's just I hadn't had a frame of reference for it yet, and it took multiple listens to get it, and then when it finally clicks, it's pretty awesome.
All right, Alan.
Let's see. All right, so I'm going to stray outside of Sweden here for a minute because I think it's apt for tonight's topic, and some folks have been commenting in the chat that because of Majesties, they've been checking out this band. Anybody heard of these?
Heard that guy. The guy in the band is a really sexy dude.
Mm-hmm.
Total chick magnet, absolutely.
Total jerk.
But yes, if you've picked up Majesties and are enjoying it, definitely circle back and check out Carl's work with Inexorum as well. Really well done. Again, it's got the blackened side of it, it's got the death metal side of it, but does really well. Especially wanted to shout out their album from last year, which I don't have a physical copy of. I've ordered it; it just hasn't shown up yet. Exceptionally good stuff. I think folks that are enjoying Majesties will really, really like this. So definitely one that it may not be from the right country, but it definitely fits the mold of what we're talking about tonight really, really well.
What are you saying? What are you saying about America? You saying some bad stuff about America?
Maybe we're saying good stuff about America. Maybe Sweden needs to do more of what they're doing.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
There you go. You questioning my patriotism? I question your patriotism.
We shoot down balloons.
We'll just whip them out here and see who's got the bigger 7-inch single. Oh, wait, they're the same size.
Oh, here we go. Pat from Ground Zero Salem. Hey, Pat, just bought the Majesties LP a minute ago. Cheers, brother. Yep, and Minnesota is second Sweden. Exactly. All right.
Sure feels like it today. It's like 8 degrees out.
Just enjoy it.
I don't.
People have been calling for him in the chat, so here we go. We got Sacrilege, Lost in the Beauty You Slay, in the 5th season. These are both excellent albums. I mean, is it anything original for the time? No. In fact, I got these both as promos when they came out. And was just like, I'm so over this, and got rid of them, and then ended up getting, bought them back, whatever. But great melodic Swedish death metal. Yeah, just want to show them off. I have nothing.
Is that part of a box set?
It was a box set.
That's cool.
Huh.
Comes with the demos and a record, a slip mat for your records on it as well.
Nice.
You're back, Carl. What you got?
Yeah. All right. Well, give me a second then. We've already talked about these guys, but let me see if I can find. Oh yeah, it's right here.
Hey, Sacrilege UK is also awesome. Influenced bolt thrower, so they can't be bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only showing this because it's we're talking box sets. This is cool. This is this has got everything that a Contreras quintet did. It's the first 2 albums, the As Tears.
I've never even seen that. That's kind of cool. When did they put that out?
Looks like 2013. Cyclone Empire Records, which that probably explains why it's hard to get because they don't really distribute very well in the States. But yeah, I mean this, and I think they might have re-recorded the second album and put it out recently, but which I haven't heard. But I mean, these are all just gems, really, really good stuff in the kind of the unsung heroes of this style. So if this is probably worth tracking down, it might be cheaper than having to buy all the original records by themselves.
Quintet, quartet, doesn't matter. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Tanner.
I really think Sacrilege is like an important. I think they're totally original, like really more so than like Sins of Omission or something else like Black Sun related. Also, Jack Half a Prayer, amazing. Like that's what my call was.
New York represent.
Yeah, like talk about like beside like Garden of Shadows, I think some bands like some people like attribute melodic death metal in the real sense, like to something like that. But like, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what to tell you about Ceremonium besides like this is great. The first album's from '95, Into the Autumn Shade, but you can't go wrong with No Longer Silent. Like it is amazing, and actually like the only other American record I had out, which I think is like one of the best melodic death metal albums that has ever come out of the United States, Marty put out, and it is Vex Memorious.
That album rules. The production's weird, but it's a great record. The riffs, man.
Yeah, like God, there's so many. Every song on this just rips.
And it sold for shit, which is even suckier.
Well, yeah, that's the problem when you have like a band no one knows, and like here we are, 2 LPs, and so you have to roll the die, But like, you should. It is around. You should fucking buy 3. Like,
go to the Iwas recordings site and buy one. I've got a bunch of them in my garage. Go for it. Yeah. They're great.
I don't mean to make this about me, but like really, I like was friends with Kieran for a while, the guitar player, and his brother is the drummer in Obsequiae. But that
amazing fucking drummer.
He's so fucking sick, and it took me a few years to finally be like, "Hey, can I get your brother's number?" And yeah, it worked. Like it means that much to me. And these songs are just like, you just can't touch it. There's nothing quite like it. The third album took me a little longer to warm up to, and now I think they're like just neck and neck. But I still think from like this frame of reference, getting into Memorious first. I'm gonna find it and put a link into it while you.
I'm putting the Iwas shop in right now, and anybody wants to buy this, and their third full length also available.
Sorry, reading fucking Abyssos. I want to see the same comment? Why does Abyssos belong here? They're terrible. They're early. I don't know.
So yeah, check out that Vex stuff. There's a whole bunch of them available. Abyssos. Are they Greek?
They kind of had that. They were sort of like the vampires, weren't they? They kind of had that vibe.
Is it like Heaven? Something Heaven is much later. They have an earlier demo, but yeah.
Huh. Anyway, all right, Alan, what you got?
I am pretty much out. I think everything I've got we have mentioned. So, yes, I will pass on to you, Marty.
I will reiterate the fact that Tanner mentioned this. This album is amazing. It really is, and the fact that when he held up this tape, and I instantly heard the chorus for the song "Northern Lights," which is a simple lyrical placement over a very frantic but simple riff. And the fact that song is second from the last song on the album, it's a well-paced. This album is a banger from start to finish. Completely unique. This is a band, their first 4 albums sound nothing alike. It's like 4 different bands put out records. The the main guy, bass player / singer Tonelli Jarva, was also in Impaled Nazarene during this time. And this record, people roll their eyes. It's gothic. It's Jarva wanting to be a metalized Fields of the Nephilim. This album fucking rules, man. There's like something about the first fall. There's something about fall. I want to listen to this record in the fall. I love it. God, I love this record. It's so melodic, so well written. I love Jarva's vocals. Afterwards, he went on to form the Black League, which sounds like this. Yeah, whatever, Ben. This record rules. I might pick it for an album club to make everybody suffer, but Swedish. This isn't in the style of like Majesties, but this is an important band, an important time. Necrophobic Nocturnal Silence. Kind of brutal, but there's some melodies in here as well. This is my favorite Necrophobic record, hands down. David Parland, rest in peace. I interviewed him back in the day when the War record came out. He was a member of War, which was a Swedish supergroup. This unfortunately record got ruined in a great toilet tank breaking disaster of 4 years ago. About a third of my CD collection got ruined. Anyway, yep, Necrophobic. They had to be shown here. Not that this is in any, you listen to Majesties and think this is kind of the blueprint for Gothenburg's melodic death metal. This is not that, but it's really good. It's got a melodic side to it. Awesome Swedish death metal. I am out. Tanner has prepared a list he worked on that we need to talk about. It's probably very, very cool. So let's talk about this list.
All right. Well, it's not super cool, but it's interesting. I just kind of threw it together with a little bit of time, so it's far from complete. But Lapse and Continue.
Hold on a second. Morka, Minnesota. That Moonlight Legend by is a good album. They reissued it last year.
Mm-hmm.
I had a promo of it. I gave it away back in the day, and I ended up rebuying it when they reissued it. It's good stuff.
God, that has a million comments now. Lord Belial, I didn't say this when Marty said it. I'm not a fan of Dawn's albums besides their first one and the demo. Not like I dislike them. I don't mean to shit on it that hard. But Lord Belial, I think of sort of like Slaughter Somewhere. It's maybe a little better, but it leans on hey, we have an acoustic song that's exceptional. And I don't know.
One guy in the band took lessons.
Yeah, but and then what was the other one? Saterial is an interesting one. Eddie, they have a Hellfuck demo from '95 that sort of is leaning toward Eucharist, but yeah, I'd agree with what people have been ripping on Abyssos for, where it's keyboards or these things that are just a little more black metal. It's sort of like an identity crisis, and it might have been cool had it been maybe a year later, just kind of caught up to themselves. But Saterial was a weird one. That Lady Lust Lilith Pulverized put that out or something, but they had I bought that because they had the Greeting Immortality cover on it, which is excellent. And Saterial is good, but I don't know that they're necessary in the way that a lot of these are, especially for when the album came out, which isn't even on my chart here. Although they did have demos throughout this period. But yeah, I don't know how you want me to run this, but
however you want to do it. You got the show.
I guess I had made this list and then I started putting things in bold for my own interest about one thing that's been really fascinating for me is when did folk elements really start coming into melodic death metal? Because that's really an interesting thing to think about. Alf Svensson, was really into Swedish folk. Jesper Stromblad was into Swedish folk. Do we know what they were necessarily? No. Are they likely bands like Grupa? In Minnesota and Minneapolis, we have Northside, which does huge Nordic Roots festivals every year, and they reissue Scandinavian folk. We're exposed to a lot of that, which is why we're.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but more Scandinavian folk influenced metal. You need to check out Eternus, their first full length, one of the best albums ever. Norwegian bolt thrower with awesome folk elements. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Do you like their classic song Celtic Harp solo?
Absolutely, love it.
It's incredible.
So good.
Yeah, I think it's technically an Australian song.
I don't care who did it; they made it amazing.
Yeah, I mean it's still probably Celtic, but like,
yeah.
Anyway, I was just really fascinated by that, and I've come down to like one conclusion, and maybe we could have an episode about this because I'm dying for people who are like really nerdy about folk metal.
What's up, Charlie? Sorry,
I should be, but like I just don't like folk metal enough, especially because by the time it became a thing, productions were bad and like everything was so cheesy. But I'm talking about like bands like Mythotine, and especially, you know, their albums didn't come out until like 97, 98, 99, but it's because they were discovered. They had 1 million demos. Their first one, I think, the one that really mattered is called Meadow in Silence. It's from 1994. There's a track on it called Wisdom that, like, you listen to that and think about like the year this came out. I don't know. I think they were one of the first. I mean, I know there are a lot of like cool dudes listening to folk music, you know, that are like, I guess I should play in a black or death metal band, but like there's a real specific kind of sound to bands like Mythotine that, sure, they're corny as fuck, but I love them. And same with the Jester Race, really. Like, it's corny as hell. I remember Beelzebub from Grimoire Exalted Deeds, like his review or something was just like, this sounds like a beer commercial. You know? And like he was onto something, you know, like that's kind of what melodic death metal became. It either tried to be like this, like, you know, kind of like almost Hot Topic thing, you know, or it became like just really confused, I guess, as a whole. Maybe the same for folk metal. I don't know as much about folk metal, but when I trace like a band like Mythotine, I'm like, you know, when you put this next to Lunar Strain, even though it's only 4 songs as a demo, like they're onto something I don't think anyone else was.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my 1994 list is, wow, Terminal Spirit Disease came out. Wow, Lunar Strain came out. Wow, Dreamy Nice came out. You know, wow, Sarcasm's demo came out. Wow, Eternal Tears of Sorrow, Bard's Burial came out. Killer demo. But 95, I guess I have, you know, can we just skip In Flames, Dark Tranquility at the gates when we do this list? Okay. Excretion, Voice of Harmony, Contreras Quintet as Tears, Autumn Leaves, Hope Springs Eternal, Nightingales, Sylph-like, Ceremonialist, Carpet, debatable, just because of like what that album means in their discography, you know. But Opeth, Orchid is an interesting one. I still think they're writing like real prog rock, not folk. You know what I mean? There's folk inherent in that stuff, but like when I say Mythotine, I mean like a little more LARPing, you know? Yep. So A Mind Confused, both of their killer demos came out in 95. Ketamenia, again, don't like it, but it's undeniably Gothenburg-y, especially on the 95 demo. 96, Sacrilege, Cromlech, Blaze My Sorrow debuts. Hypocrites, Edge of Existence, which was like a long time in the making. They've been around since like 89. I know LG even like sang with them, not in a demo or something, but I remember reading that on Archive.
Oh, really?
Huh. Yeah. It's pretty, I mean, Toba from At the Gate sang with Sacrilege too. Like there's live video on YouTube. It's kind of crazy how that stuff happened. Vinterlands, Welcome My Last Chapter. Fall of the Leaf is an interesting one. Again, like this isn't melodic death metal, but like tracing the folk thing. Like this demo came out in 96, you know, and that's important. It just is. There's just not a lot that sounds like it. You can trace its lineage to something like Skydancer, but also one that's like probably more in like the Catatonia vein is Ancient Wisdoms for Snow Covered the Northland.
Oh, that's a good album.
That's a cool one, yeah.
Drum Machine, fuckers.
So I was always convinced it was, but then it like credits a dude who's like pretty reputable.
I don't know. Corthon credited a lot of shit that he was an enigma, and there was a lot of drum machine shit on his stuff too. So
Yeah, it's just so weird because I don't know.
maybe it just sounds like a drum machine to me. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was
It's still a great record.
Listen to the cymbal transients though. Like next time you listen to it,
that could be the telltale sign for sure.
Anyway, Ancient Wisdom for Snow Cover the Northland has like the 93 and 95 demos sort of bookended on it, and those songs somehow are even sicker. Nothing they ever did that I heard was as good as it, but I'd be curious to revisit it. Again, that Shadows of Sunset demo, even if it's not like remarkable, which it is, just to be in 1996 and doing this, because by the time you get to 1997, you've got a couple bands that are like, hey, we did this in 96, but it came out in 97. This is kind of where shit just kind of goes downhill. Like a bunch of stuff that's like, we're really inspired by some of these bands. We've got some new ideas, some more novel kinds of things. Production's changed a little bit. Bigger labels are backing this. We've like a more kind of like mature grasp of what the vocals are going to be like. It's not just like rehearsal room shrieking like our demo or something, you know? So you've got, you know, the moaning, as Carl said. Noctis Pandemonic Requiem is one I would recommend highly. It sort of sounds like if the self-titled Hypocrisy album was good, but way fast and way more melodic stuff happening. Of course, Gates of Ishtar. I don't mean to like pass over this band, but like I just kind of feel like, not like it's in flames, but like Gates of Ishtar is just like the band that's smoking a blunt next to you all the time. You're kind of just like, you know what I mean? Like it's, of
they
course,
didn't really start to get melodic death metal until their 97 album, whichever one that was. I was listening to it today. I'm like, well, this is starting to them transitioning into more melodic sound. Which one was it? I threw my notes away. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, yeah, all of this came out pretty consecutive order. I don't want to bore people going over this, but yeah, I don't know. Gates of Ishtar, Mythotine. What else do we have? Yeah, Mind Confused. Does anyone remember Guidance of Sin?
I remember getting a promo for it. And I don't remember. And Gardenian was another one too.
Yeah, they're fine.
That they were kind of later, weren't they?
I think so.
Yeah, they're like 99 and up beyond.
That sounds right, Carl. Yeah.
Yeah, again, this list is pretty underwhelming. Really what I was trying to do is kind of, if I thought it was going to be more Gothenburg focused, I was going to make the case that Dark Tranquility was more Gothenburg than At the Gates was ever. And
that's not a bad, that statement is pretty correct.
Okay, cool.
I think so.
That's one vote.
Oops, sorry, Alan. You're messing with. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're clicking the same ones.
We're clicking on the same shit. All right. Well, before we wrap, Tanner, I'm going to pose this question to you. Why is the demo better? Why is the demo always better?
I think for this age, especially in the 90s, like bands that had really ambitious ideas and went somewhere usually did it because that early fire was so strong. So
youthful fire. Yeah.
I know it's a cliche, but like the closest you can get to the embers of like where that warmth came from, there's something really fun about that. It's not necessarily that in the case of the Eucharist, the recording actually is better. Like that's a funny exception to the rule, but like, I'm not going to show my tattoo because it's very close to my
It's on his wiener.
Yeah. Someone's like, I'm taking a piss. Someone's like, how come your dick says DM? I'm like, wait till it's, I know. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, it's just, it's one of my favorite tattoos of all time. It's just a sort of like an ethos, that's sort of shared that says more about like a demo being better as much as just like creativity matters, being productive, having output, just honing in on that stuff and executing it and contributing to much greater conversation, like what might be on YouTube in 30 years.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody have anything to add to this before we knock it on the head?
Well, I just want to say thanks for hanging out with us. It's been super fun. I mean, we like to geek out on this stuff. We do it in person, but never have a chance to, get online and talk about it with a bunch of other people. So this is really fun. And thanks for everyone with spending their Friday night with us. This rules.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you guys coming on. Seriously.
Oh, yeah,
an,
definitely.
An open invite to come back as well. And there's two
Mhm.
things to promote here before we move on. This week, Tanner put up on the $20 spin site. Go on the YouTube site for $20 spin. There is a full show of Obsequiae that for Fire in the Mountains. It's awesome. It's perfectly edited. The sound is amazing. High level musicians crushing it in the live setting. It's amazing. If you have not seen the Obsequiae Fire in the Mountain set, go check it out, please. Thank you, Ben, for reminding me to mention it because I probably would have forgotten. And secondly, the hype is real. This album is great. I'm not saying it because these guys are here. I mean, if you've heard Inexorum, if you've heard Obsequiae, there's quality musicianship going on, and it really focused itself perfectly on this side project, whatever you want to call this. Side band, doesn't matter. Vast Reaches Unclaimed is an excellent snapshot in time. It's focused on the genre we've been talking about this evening, but it kind of moves it forward as far as I'm concerned. I think the songwriting is better, the harmonies are amazing, the melodies are great. It's just a great compositional piece. It's a great record. Definitely check it out. And I don't know if we put Inexorum and Obsequiae and everybody in the chat in the description, but please go check all that stuff out.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate you guys for coming on tonight. Thank you so much. And again, you both have an open invite for other episodes down the road. You have an idea for a show, hit one of us up. You have an open invite to come on anytime. It's great to have.
We'll work it out.
It's great to have friends on and talented friends as well. And thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Does anybody have anything to say before we close?
Yeah, thanks to everyone who's commenting. I've been trying to keep track, and I'm really sorry we didn't get to all the questions.
It's hard to keep up with them. They're busy. They're a rowdy bunch.
Yeah, like some of these too, like at the end, like every single one, like Dungeon Serpent does fucking rip. I saw someone talk about In Nothingness too. These are bands that we can get to. I think the focus was maybe a little more specific this time, but it'd be cool to have to do it again. Thanks for the open invite. It really means a lot.
No, seriously, it's good to have friends on and that are just as passionate about metal as we are, and you guys will have other great topics, and we'll work something out. We'll get you back on at some point. Together, apart, doesn't matter. You're open invite.
Awesome.
We're better together.
Wonder Twin powers activate. Yeah. But don't hang up. We're going to chat here for a minute. Everybody, thank you so much. Alan, do you have anything to add before we jump?
No, it's been a great conversation. It's been a fun topic. So many folks have said, tonight that it's a topic they feel like they don't get to talk about as much. It's not a genre that's brought up. Going back to one of the first points we all made tonight, it does seem like it's a genre that's been a little quiet, a little neglected.
That's a good point.
In recent years. And so, I think that speaks volumes to the great reception that y'all are getting for the album. People still really love this kind of music. It's really important.
And they wrote an album that revitalized it and made it relevant in 2023, to be honest.
You've made something that people really were hungry for. Maybe they didn't realize it or not, but
At the Gates can't even do it anymore.
There was
In Flames fucking can't even do it anymore. Anyway,
there was a comment earlier.
But dude, the new album, they went back to the roots, man.
Go ahead.
There's a comment earlier about the In Flames record, and did we time our record to come out at the same time as theirs? And we had no idea, so this was not in any way planned. but it's kind of cool that they came out so close together, just because, you know, I think it's nice for people to be thinking about, well, what is this kind of music that I heard about maybe, and you know, I might give it a chance. You know, it's nice to have it simultaneous or nearly simultaneous the way it is.
Yeah, we never really got into the dirty stuff. Like, why is this genre hated? Because
we could do it now. We could do it now. Why is the genre hated?
Oh, I'm not prepared.
Do you need to be prepared?
Well, we covered that a little bit at the top. Is it was too much?
I will reiterate the fact that when I was going through it at the time when it was coming out, there was too much, dude. It was like the Cannibal Corpse era, the Suffocation era. When I started Worm Gear, and me and some friends started Worm Gear in '95, every demo that we got sounded like New York death metal. Man. It was a quick hot. It would burn hot, but it was too many bands all at once, and it was a lot of the same bands, you know, drinking from the same trough.
Yeah,
and it just when you're, hate to sound like that guy, but when you know you're in a position where you're hearing all that stuff, it's coming into your inbox, your mailbox. It's like there's nothing new under the sun anymore. Everybody's got the same singular voice. This is what's popular. Jester Race came out, and that fucking record, there was so many bands that were trying to get that hit. You know, they're trying to get that sound. In Flames nailed it. A lot of other bands, you know, Everdawn.
Yeah, 5 guitars.
Yeah, the Everdawn.
Yep.
That Poems Burn the Past. I got that record. Now I would like to re-listen to it again, but I quickly got rid of that. I'm like, this sounds like At the Gates Junior. You know, their distant cousin. I don't know. It's just whatever. Go ahead, Alan.
I think another thing that hurt the scene to some extent, you know, all of those big, the very visible bands, you know, that people gravitate to, they all migrated out of this style relatively quickly.
Black metal.
You know, at the Gates disappears after, you know, Slaughter of the Soul.
Yep.
In Flames, you know, rapidly moved away from this style. Most fans, you know, hung with them for a few albums, but, you know, by the time you get to, you know, Clayman and Reroute to Remain, it was getting hard for a lot of folks to stick with them. You know, Dark Tranquility got moved to Century Media, and, you know, their albums kind of, you know, took a turn where they started feeling a little cookie cutter for a while.
Yeah,
more like
they still put out some good stuff here and there.
They did. It's not that the stuff was bad. It's not saying that any of them started to suck, but they definitely changed styles. You know, there's, you know, a lot of distance between something like The Gallery and Damage Done, or between, you know, Jester Race and Reroute to Remain. The band, you know, In Flames, of course, went on to be much more accessible and popular. Dark Tranquility kind of, you know, found their, you know, groove and stuck to it. And so for a lot of folks, it was just like, oh, all the bands I like kind of broke up or went commercial real fast. And sometimes that leaves a bad taste in metalheads' mouths in particular.
I think it's hard because melodic means nothing. It really doesn't. I mean, there's melody in everything, and I'm not just trying to be an idiot, but like, if you're someone who cares about melody, the last descriptor you want or qualifier is the word melodic. You know, it doesn't mean good melody. It doesn't mean anything about the melody. So you're left with the coffee talk paradox. Like, melodic death metal is neither death metal nor melodic. Talk amongst yourselves.
Melody is a dirty word in metal, which is kind of sad because it's very important.
Is it? I don't know. I think
it is. I mean, that Liars, and we were talking about Liars. You're wearing a Liars and Waste shirt. That is the most brutal EP ever. They put out that EP and they disappeared.
But you know, like, I think it's my mother's side. I'm like half marshmallow. You know, so like the reason I wear this is because I need something to look hard. Because I'm about to talk about Kill Switch Engage in Boston, and someone's going to throw a rock through my way. You know what I mean? Melodic death metal went the way of that, or Inciferum, or Children of Bodom even. Like, it's not too early to say Children of Bodom. I think one of the hardest things about melodic death metal is that it means something different to everyone. And one thing I was thinking about a lot when we're talking about, like, hey, what's like the traditional sound that like everyone thinks of? that isn't Slaughter of the Soul, that is before 1997, maybe before 96, I would say, like, you have Twilight bands. They were there. They had albums that were released. Even if the bands are still there, it's done. It happened. Production styles changed. Like, a lot changed. And the sensationalism around black metal really took over.
It did.
Death metal didn't have anything to stand on. It doesn't matter that Thomas Lindbergh practically sounds like Varga Kearney's, you know? Like, they're both like desperate shriekers. It wasn't about stuff like that. It was that this guy is a church burning Nazi. Like, that's going to sell more than like, hey, this guy's really nice and he writes some riffs, you know? Like, black metal was a big part of it. I think hardcore, just like in the US and stuff, took over.
Big time.
A lot of things against melodic death metal. So it was short-lived, and I think the kinds of stuff we're talking about, we didn't have room for midwinters in there, Marty. Yeah.
I don't care. I listen to a lot of stuff that nobody here would like, but I think melody, you could say melodic anything, the connotation is more mainstream. And honestly, melody is the one thing that sells hooks. It sells. If you use melody effectively, like your album is a prime example of using melody effectively. It speaks to a wider populace. It isn't just the underground people that like that Liars and Wait 4-song album EP. It's a broader reach. It talks to people's inner resonance, whatever. I don't know. Melody's important. And the older I get, I mean, I used to be the old school brutal dude. And now the older I get, melody is important. And it's beautiful. It can make you happy. It can make you sad. It's just how the songwriter fucks with it. And that's the genius of it all. How do you use melody? That is the most important key, is how do you use it? Are you going to make this, you're going to make this awesome metal record? You're going to use melody. It's going to be at the forefront of your sound. Are you writing Windrose riffs, Sabaton riffs? Are you writing, old 1995, before they broke in flames riffs? It's just, melody's important, and to understate it it's kind of a disservice. And more like underground metalheads need to realize that melody isn't a bad thing. It just isn't.
I think a lot of people are starting to. I mean, this scene seems more healthy now than it ever has been. There's more like younger people into it, and like traditional heavy metal that doesn't suck is getting popular. Like
Halloween,
even just Eternal Champion, it's fucking incredible. Yeah. And the new Gatekeeper album, couldn't recommend that enough. I don't know, that stuff is just like next level. So
Samantha, my kid loves Windrose. That he sat me down. He's like, Dad, I gotta have you check out a band. I'm like, okay, this is my 12-year-old is gonna have me check out a metal band. It was that song, Diggy Diggy Hole. I'm just like, I'm laughing on the inside, and afterwards he looks at me, he's like, what do you think?
Hey, Charlie from Panopticon is in the chat. Charlie, you go to Hell's Heroes? Will you please say hi to David and Jeff from me? I know, I miss you. I guess I'll practice with you next month.
Next month, that's right. We got big shows coming up, big shows. Absolutely. I'm a dwarf and I'm digging a hole. Diggy, diggy hole. Diggy, diggy hole. Anyway, cheers, everybody. We love you. Thank you to Carl and Tanner for hanging out with myself and Alan. Alan, always a pleasure, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks to everybody in the chat also for hanging out. It's been a really fun conversation tonight, and we hope everyone has a good weekend, and tune in again next week. Absolutely. Next week, Alan won't be here. Probably not. I'm going to be slumming it. I'll figure it out. I've got plans. But Carl, Tanner, go check out Inexorum. Go check out Obsequii. Go buy this Majesties record. Quit slumming. Quit being on the fence. Go check it out. The hype is real. Cheers to everybody. Thank you. We'll see you Wednesday. We'll be talking about a Witch Hazel record on
the Wednesday Album Club, and there might be a review from me up on Monday. I don't know if I'm going to get around to shooting it, but hopefully that's the case. But anyway, cheers, everybody. Have a great one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Don't hang up. Stay on.